the cold breeze, steel boots on the sand, no ease. Propellers hum the Soviet quest, but the island ain't weak, not less. She-hot tanks roaring loud and clear, zombie hula girls, no fear. Tiki terrors rise, eyes ablaze, Soviets drown in the island haze. Island don't surf, island don't win, Tiki terrors won't let them in. She-hot tanks make the ground shake, zombie hula girls' hearts won't break. Under moonlight chants they clash, steel meets flame, bones will thrash. Cold War's heat, the island's grip, Tiki rage will never slip. Drums beat, wild waves take hold, Soviet shiver, hearts turn cold. In the depths of night they fail, Tiki terror's ancient tale. Island don't surf, island don't win, Tiki terrors won't let them in. She-hot tanks make the ground shake, zombie hula girls' hearts won't break. Island don't surf, island don't win, Tiki terrors won't let them in. She-hot tanks make the ground shake, zombie hula girls' hearts won't break.
Howdy, it's your old pal, Tiki the Hut. Thanks for joining me again on another Too Late Tonight with Tiki. Again, sorry for being late. I'm just coming off a double myself, and I woke up early before work to kind of go out and get the rule book, and I got my Rift dice. I debated a little bit. I ended up with blue. I thought blue would probably be best for IJN. But you can probably hear my voice. I probably sound a little more tranquilized than usual. So please bear with me a little bit. I know usually it's a paint and chat. This is the 80th one though, which is kind of cool. It's cool to see all these people waiting in chat with friendly messages of encouragement. But I figured what we'll do is we will go through the book, because I figured not everyone has the book. You know, now that it's officially available to everyone, we'll just go through the book page by page, read through it, and talk about how we feel. How do y'all feel about that? I mean, spoiler alert is what we're gonna do. It's not really a vote, but that's the plan for the stream. But hopefully you guys are all right with that. I figure it's a nice final stream before we start October, and more importantly, this is, again, not only is it the 80th stream, but this is a long time coming, as a Konflikt 47 channel, you know, started years ago, and the stream started, you know, almost about a year ago. You know, I think the channel started like 2 or 3 years ago. The stream started about a year ago, and we finally have version 2 in the flesh, so it's kind of cool. Yeah, feel free to vote in the poll. There wasn't enough options to put every faction. I personally think the IJ had a great glow up. I loved, spoiler alert, just be honest with you guys, I saw the Imperial Japanese models very early. Somebody who shall remain nameless did leak to me what the IJA models look like. So I've known for a hot minute what the IJA models look like, especially the Scorpion. So that was kind of cool. But again, I'm not a hypocrite. I'm not a fan of early access, so I didn't say anything. Killed me not to, but I'm like, ugh. I mean, I can't control if someone sends me a picture. You know, it wasn't like solicited, like, hey, you want to see this? Someone's like, hey, check this out. I'm like, ah, fuck. But bum's the word. I kept quiet about it, but RK, you know nothing. But which is cool because long before it was sent to me, I also was kind of like, hey, you know, a lot of you guys who have played me in person have seen my IJ models. You know, seen that I use the 28mm pike and shot samurai bit, so I have the back flags, I have the samurai helmets, and a lot of those accoutrements on my Imperial Japanese already. You know, so it was cool to see them kind of replicate that. It's the obvious way to go forward, you know, and I got that from Red Alert 3, so that was kind of cool to see. Alright, so we're looking at the table of contents. I figured we'd go through the book, and then we'll see what we're doing from there. I will say, I flipped to the book ahead of time. I wanted to take, I know you can see my hands. Light on the lore. Very light on the lore. Not a fan of that at all. I think the lore from the first iteration of Konflikt 47 is great. I feel like they felt like they were too constrained by the draft, or the lore of the first couple books. So you can tell in this book, they're like, yeah, here's a rough timeline, a bomb dropped, some weird stuff happened, alright, let's play monsters and heroes, you know? Nothing wrong with that, you know? Sometimes it's good to have, like, a loose narrative, and then kind of put in more books and write it as you go. There's nothing wrong with that. But that wasn't really how they marketed it. They kept marketing like, hey, look at all these great writers we got who used to do Black Library and all sorts of good lore for Warhammer 40k. Oh, cool, what's the lore in the main book? Yeah, it's like not there. Oh, okay. So that was a huge letdown for me, but it's alright. It's okay. Just makes my job easier. I don't have to worry about. So I can finish my lore videos for the first iteration Konflikt 47 first. I'm not really in a huge rush to do these ones. You know, since there's not a lot of lore there. So yeah, I wanted to get my negatives out first. The lack of lore was, I didn't like it. Some people won't care, and that's perfectly fine. But to me, not my thing. Number two, the first thing I'm running across, and I can only speak to the Imperial Japanese, because again, I haven't fully read this yet. I've only flipped through it. I had to end up doing a double today, so I woke up early, grabbed a pie from a really good local bar. I was doing like an Oktoberfest thing, made it home, got called in early, did a double. So I literally just got off work. That's why I was late logging in. I had to finish a report and then log into here. But I've only looked through a few stuff. One thing I don't like, what I already see, and again, you can home roll it, so it's not that big of a deal, but you have to start with an assault platoon. And your assault platoon, at least in the Imperial Japanese, has to have Rift Tech units. Maybe the other factions are different. We'll see when we flip through the book. Maybe the Germans and the Americans are a little bit different, but for the Imperial Japanese, you have to have Rift units. You have to have 2 specialized infantry units with your officer. You can't just take rifles. You can't just take 2 rifle squads and then add special Rift units like Shibobi Zombies or Ghost Attack Squad like you could in the first Konflikt 47. No, this one you have to take 2 advanced or specialized infantry squads. Could be battle frame, could be Ghost Attack squads, all sorts of stuff. Yeah, thank you, Arca. That's exactly what I was thinking in my head. I apologize. Not that I am witty, but my internal RAM is compromised for the evening, so I will be speaking a lot slower. I probably won't make as many jokes just because I can't compute. Like, I can imagine it in my head, but somewhere between my head and my mouth it gets lost. So I figure it's a good day just to kind of read. Yeah, so I don't like that rule. But that's my own personal preference. There's nothing wrong with the game. I think the game is awesome, but me personally, I like military sci-fi more than I like sci-fi with military, if that makes sense. How do I say this? What's a good example? I like Starship Troopers over Star Trek. Maybe that's a bad comparison. I don't know. I like a little bit of... Yeah, I like sci-fi in my military stuff. That's fine. You know, I prefer that better than sci-fi with military aspects. What I mean by that is I like weird World War II, you know, or alternate history World War II with a little bit of tech stuff than... But, to be fair, they did tell us ahead of time, way ahead of time. Sorry, I'm trying not to delay too much. I just want to get all my negative stuff out front. That way I don't sound like an ass. Not trying to, like, glaze or blue ball anybody. But, they did say ahead of time, like, hey, this is the addition of monsters and heroes. That's what this is all about. They did say that way ahead of time, so... This one wasn't surprising. I kind of saw it coming, so I wasn't that surprised. Not like the lore. Yeah, Ginny, I was going to say Starship Troopers or Star Wars. Here, I have it better. I got this, right? I like, controversial opinion, right? This will start all sorts of stuff in the chat, right? I like Rogue One over... Yeah, I like Rogue One over episode what is that? 7? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. Episode 7. Yeah, so if I had to pick between episode 7 or Rogue One, because they came out roughly around the same time, right? Rogue One to me is a better story. It's less Space Wizard, you know, less Gary Stu, Mary Sue, and just more like, hey, this is military, everyone dies, it's gruesome, you know, the rebellion are bad guys too, everyone's a bad guy. It was good. Alright. But enough conjecture, let's get into this. Alright, so you may be able to see a little bit on camera. Like I said, I'm not going to adjust the angle too much because it also kind of protects me legally. I'm not showing you the whole book. We're kind of just looking over the book as I read it, you know? So, that way you're not like, oh, I can't see it. It's just so that you still have to go out and buy the book. You can't just, like, watch the video and take screenshots. I don't want to get sued. Alright. So, for the contents, you have the world of Konflikt 47, basic supplies, conventions of war, units, the turn, orders, rift dice, movement, shooting, weapons, close quarters. Talk about headquarters, hero units, power armor, unit special rules, artillery, vehicles, buildings, arranging a game of Konflikt 47, the battle scenario, story scenarios, force selection, weapons manual, rule summary, and the index. Alright, quote from Churchill. But if we fail, the whole world, including the United States, including all that we have known and cared for, will sink into the abyss. A new dark age made more sinister and perhaps more protracted by the light of perverse science. I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't, I was pretty tired after a double, Sean. It was a long day today. Long day. People who watch the news will pick up. Yeah, long day for me. But it is the 80th stream. It's the day the Konflikt 47 version 2 released. I couldn't really call myself a Konflikt 47 channel if I didn't stream, you know. So that I don't want to let you guys down, but it is hard to stream when we're low man like this and I'm working a lot of overtime, but it's not a big deal. Alright, so the first thing we have is a nice little short story called A Single Bound. It's about your Rocketeers or your Firefly jump infantry. Not too bad, decently long. Alright, so the first thing you're going to come across right here is a thing about the Axis, and I think this is where we're just going to start kind of talking about the Green Vault. So this is kind of their approach to the story. They're kind of telling it, they're kind of doing the lore as almost more like a a piecemeal version. You know, they're kind of talking about, they approach it in a way kind of similar to World War Z if you read the book. So it's like, instead of focusing it, reading it chronologically from one or the other, they take snippets from all different stuff told from this point of view and kind of slap it all together. We saw that in the first couple of Conflikt 47 books when they started doing, like, you know, the Black Pit and stuff like that, and it wasn't bad, but it wasn't quite the same. I really enjoy the way they did lore. No problem, Gamer Dad. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be like, oh, woe is me, you know, but no, I'm just, I've always trying to shot straight with you guys, so I didn't want to put on like a fake facade or anything. You'll hear me literally slurping coffee constantly. Yeah, it wasn't a pity story. It's just so you guys can tell, like, there'll absolutely be a change in my tone. All right. So this first page kind of talks more about the Axis and how the Green Vault kind of takes over, which is kind of cool. We'll just kind of pick out bits and pieces here. The atomic annihilation released upon Dresden took only an instant, but it was the one that had been 3 centuries in the making. While the opening of the rifts, the need for secrecy gone, the politicians of the Third Reich have been discarded, their purpose served, and their imagery remade anew. So yeah, confirmed they're absolutely getting rid of the crooked windmills. I'm sure somebody who's stuck in the middle of winter will be enthused about that. A similar revolution engineered by the far-reaching hands of the Green Vault and the network of secret societies has taken place across Germany's European allies, consolidating the nations into a monolithic axis centered around the ruins of Dresden and the hellish rift at its core. Now marching under one sinister banner, Axis troops wage war in the name of the Green Vault and final victory. So yeah, it looks like a lot of your Axis powers are all going to be under the Axis now. I imagine we'll see Finland, North Italy. I kept joking around and saying Ireland on Morty stream, but I doubt that. For the Axis soldier at the front, the war is still won often on survival, often against desperate odds. But in a world far more lethal than ever before, there is no question or possibility of negotiations or surrender. For the Axis, the war can only come to total victory or utter obliviation. A fact that reinforced constantly by the Green Vault's propagandists. Alright, the Green Vault still has propaganda going on. As the old world tears itself apart in a rift-fueled orgy of destruction, new horrors issue forth from the hell that sits at the heart of the old Reich. The dark mobilization of the Axis forces gather apace with each passing day, while the Green Vault's finest minds stream of the impossible glories revealed to them in the flickering fire still burning in the Dresden charred corpses. Their motives Their motives are unknown, perhaps incomprehensible to the uninitiated, but their will is clear and hard as crumped steel. The war will continue. The Green Vault demands that their risk scientists and generals ensure that it does so. So it does look like they are taking. So a lot of people didn't like that they got rid of the crooked windmills. Like, oh, you're like changing history. Of course they are. It's alternate history. People are like, oh, you're taking like a soft stance. No, not really. What I think they're doing is I think they're getting away because they invested so much time and money into this. I think it's a marketing thing. Nobody wants to invest money in symbols like that. That could be somebody could snap and just come. It's not a good idea, right? So they're changing the whole thing, but they're taking it even darker. It's almost like getting close to like Trench Crusade level of darkness. They're going like full like Hellgast, Castle Wolfenstein. I think it's pretty cool actually. Pretty cool image. You have Soviets, you have Ursus infantry and some Soviet armor. power armor like their Soviet guards. Yeah, and that's what I feel like, Arcade, which is good. I mean, I can't comment on that because I made the Cult of Imhotep, so very similar. Not saying I belong to the Black Shifts. That's the second thing I kind of saw coming. I was like, hey, let's lean into the cult, like the Thule cult or Thule Society and shit like that. Lean into that a little bit more. Same thing I did with the Japanese. I'm not gonna lie, it killed me. I wanted to tell you guys. I saw it. I saw it compared to my models. Like, oh, son of a bitch, I called it. So that was kind of cool. I felt vindicated. Vindication? Alright, now we have the United States. Alright, since being dragged into the Second World War by the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor, the United States has experienced a period of enormous societal change, driven for the most part by the discovery of the risk by the Manhattan Project scientists. In their quest to produce the atomic bomb, American scientists tore a hole in the fabric of the universe. What issued forth from the rift at Los Alamos is viewed by most Americans as nothing short of the Word of God. Initially, however, the strange energies and anomalies emanating from the nuclear test site proved only a new and terrible weapon, one which was swiftly employed to raze the German city of Dresden to the ground, opening a second rift at the center of the dead city. All this changed when ailing President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, given no hope of survival by his doctors, visited the Los Alamos Rift site to better understand the strange new development. When he emerged, he was transformed, strong, healthy, and miraculously healed by, as he claimed, the divine intervention of the Almighty through the rift. This unprecedented recovery was seized upon by the press, becoming a national sensation, with 22nd April 1944 declared a Miracle Day. Religious fervor gripped America, and it has never relaxed its hold since. So the vibes I'm getting, I know a lot, and I kind of said it too. They're going a little like Far Cry 5. Reading this, I feel like it's a mixture of, like the Imperium of Man kind of, so like that kind of that, but with a really good what I want to say BioShock Infinite kind of vibe. Maybe not so much Far Cry 5. I think they're gonna go for like BioShock Infinite. I think that's the kind of like Art Deco, veneer. Yeah, that's the term. It's almost like a very veneer on top of everything. The tactics and the weapons and all the stuff is still the same, but they just kind of, put a little bit of a spin on, a little bit of a veneer. So that's kind of interesting. Roosevelt's declaration that the ongoing war has a new crusade, literally says the word crusade, Deus Vult, right? So, new crusade against the blasphemous horrors of Nazism, Japanese treachery, and godless communism whipped the U.S. into a fever pitch. The nation is consumed with the belief that America has been chosen by God to lead the fight for freedom, justice, and truth. So yeah, this is straight up Deus Vult, Manifest Destiny, So in this world, I can see it to like, hey, everything's going down. We split the atom, right? We split the atom, and it created rifts, and it healed our president and gave him a miracle. Clearly, we're ordained. Somebody has to conquer the world and bring peace to it. Why not us? Super interesting. I heard it at the shop when I was picking up my book and Rift Dice. Some other people were excited about Konflikt 47. They said something they liked. I know it's a very anecdotal story, right? Like I heard someone say this. It sounds like bullshit, but it happened. They said what they liked is that in Konflikt 47 there are no good guys. And so far, we've read these two factions that kind of holds true, and I like that as well. It's kind of cool. Every faction has obviously its dark side, and I really, really enjoy that. Kind of goes back to, in real history, the Imperial Japanese view of it. Again, not glazing them, not saying they weren't bad guys, they absolutely were. Unit 731 was an absolutely real thing. But they said, like, hey, they look just off their island, they see all these other Asian countries that are subjects, in other countries' empires, and colonies. Like, hey, if anyone's going to colonize Asia and set up an empire, why can't it be Asians instead of Western Europeans? And everyone's like, no, don't do that. And they're like, ha, spoiler alert, too late. And they launched their attack. So it's an interesting concept where it's interesting. I like how everyone has a claim to being evil. It's like everyone's laying a claim at the world. Ooh, okay, here's a fun part right here. Let me read this section. America is a nation of utter self-belief. There is no room for compromise or doubt. The Rift-Tech abomination spilling force from the Axis and Japanese laboratories, or laboratories, have only to reinforce the United States' determination to bring the wrath of God to the enemy. While the Soviet bloc remains an implacable ideological foe, even for the British Commonwealth, jealously guarding their research into artificial intelligence, must recognize America's divine mission or be swept aside by the tide of righteous fury. Only one nation under God can triumph in the end. I like what they're setting up there. It's like, hey, you know, we're at war with the Green Vault Axis and the Imperial Japanese. Abso-fucking-lutely, right? We're tired of putting up with the communist bullshit. Like, we're tired of putting up with Soviets. So we're about to go to war with them. Like, and we're, call it like weak tea, tepid water. Like, we're in very frigid relations with the Commonwealth, you know? And especially if you think about it, because so far I'm reading, it appears that the Americans shared a lot of their Rift Tech with the British, but apparently the British were also developing artificial intelligence and didn't share it with the Americans. And then if you look at it through the Americans and Comic 47's lens of a very pro-religious stance, like almost to the fact of a cult, like a crusade, think about your Black Templars, you know, how many librarians are the Black Templars, right? So you gotta look at this uber religious one nation under God America. When they look at artificial intelligence, that's gonna be a massive slight in the face of religion. So they're gonna lose their minds over that. Yeah, and they're doing a good job of making the lore where everybody can fight everybody. You know what I mean? And I really like that. I can appreciate that, you know, because we'll talk about it next stream as I'm setting up this crusade. I had to set up 4 alliances, you know, and give a reason why everyone would be fighting everyone in one subsector, you know? So I can appreciate why they're doing this. Nice another full art picture. Alright boys, grab your Earl Grey and your cold, rainy weather. It's time to talk about the British Commonwealth. While Britannia once ruled the waves, I think there's a song about that, Britain and the Commonwealth now stand precariously on the precipice of history, exhausted by the effort of fighting to defend the empire all across the world, and with its finances stretched thinner and thinner by constant need to produce more and better weapons and war machines. Britain has been forced to call upon every resource at its disposal to stay in the fight. Withdrawing is out of the question, with Churchill's famous speech ringing true in 1947 as it did 7 years previously. You know, we shall fight them on the streets, we shall fight them on the beaches. The fighting rages on, and the only way for Britain to avoid its dominions being carved up and its power curtailed by emergent new powers is to stand and fight to the bitter end. All is by no means lost, however. The vast reserves of manpower and resources the Commonwealth have, by a series of acts of parliament, come fully under London's control. Every nation with the king as its sovereign now answers directly to the men in Whitehall. and soldiers from across the globe will march to defend the Empire. Apparently, the beacons of Gondor have been lit. So every single colony. So what's cool is this will actually give me reason to make my first Caribbean regiment. So that actually was a real unit in history. There was a Caribbean regiment, or Caribbean, whichever way you want to say it, made up of a lot of the British territories in the Caribbean. They were trained as riflemen, and they actually did some fighting, and they were sent to North Africa. And you have to remember, there was a battle for Aruba. Aruba had a massive oil refinery, and the Germans kept trying to send U-boats to fuck that shit up. So you could actually see some serious fighting in the Caribbean, you know, over Aruba and things like that. So yeah, every single Commonwealth. So that means from the Caribbean to Oceania, all over the place. Africa, you have it's Rhodesia, so we have Rhodesia, South America, all the all-stars coming back, which is pretty cool. This is gonna be good. Canada, of course, you know. The Commonwealth has weathered the initial storm caused by the opening of the Ritz and has emerged to significantly change union. Now the empire on which the sun never sets gathers its strength and squares up to the enemy anew. Yeah, some of these things kind of sound familiar because it's what they released early ahead of time. While on the home front, oppression to the automation of industry from modern-day Luddites grows in strength. On the battlefield across the world, the British soldier fights on with a grim determination. Schoolboy ideas of martial glory and fair play have been burned away in the crucibles of war, and in their place stands an utterly unwillingness to ever give in. Backed by the newest and deadliest weaponry available, Britain and her empire will not go quietly into the night. So it sounds like the entire empire is adopting Canada's fuck around and find out strategy of war crimes. Which, to be fair, when the enemy is using zombies and werewolves, yeah, fuck that. You know, gloves, Queensberry rules be damned, gloves off, you know, grab the brass knucks, go full Peaky Blinders. All hands, throwing hands kind of situation. But if you notice, there's a cool little tidbit snuck in there. Let me read it again. While on the home front, opposition to the automation of industry from modern-day Luddites grows in strength. That's kind of cool. So they're talking about they're using a lot more of these AI and, you know, Alfreds or automatons. You know, they're also not just using them on the battlefield, but also to create war material, you know, and taking jobs back in the factories, freeing up men and women to fight on the front lines, right? Some people, especially the Luddites who are against technology, are not part of that, especially because it's taking away jobs in the factory. Now, taking away jobs in a factory, and that sounds very much like the Soviet Union could try and sneak into the back door and possibly try and do a communist revolution inside of the empire. That's setting up a whole little story arc. That would be fucking cool. All right. I'm not gonna lie, the new Knock bins, you can't quite see it off camera here. They still look like the little coffee aliens from Men in Black. I'll always see that. They took our germs! That's exactly what it is. Alright. This is where the book turns from my book to our book, and then swiftly falls apart and crumbles. By the way, I think it was both RK, Irish, and Morning Glory. All three of them recommended it to me. I want to say so. RK, you can tell me if I'm lying or not. But they recommend that I watch The Death of Stalin. I had never seen it before. That was probably one of the better movies I have seen in a long time. I was entertained the entire time. I was laughing, and I feel like every actor and actress in that movie absolutely knew their part and fucking nailed it. Nobody overacted, nobody underacted. Everyone knew their part and nailed it. I'm talking, watching that movie was like watching the last performance of a Broadway show. You know, it's the last one, everyone's giving it their all out, everyone's having fun doing it, everyone knows their part, everything runs smooth. It's exactly what that movie felt like. Oh, okay. Oh, I guess it wasn't RK. I thought it was URK. It might have been Irish in Morning Glory. Well, if you haven't seen it, so sorry if I wasn't trying to lie. If you haven't seen RK, I highly recommend watching it. The Death of Stalin. Phenomenal. It just keeps getting better. As more and more characters come in, they just all keep nailing their parts. It's phenomenal. I can't believe I'd never seen it before. It is very, very good. Alright. The Soviet bloc. The opening of the risk caught the Soviets off guard, but they were not as great a surprise to Stalin and the party as many might suppose. Across the world, many people sympathetic to the communist regime can be found, and some of these people occupy extremely privileged positions indeed. So like I said, we knew this ahead of time. They're leaning a lot more instead of trying to. This is what I was worried about, because I knew they were going to drop the Nazi ideology. They're going to drop the windmills, the swastikas, all that kind of stuff, right? But I was worried they weren't going to drop the communist. I was worried they weren't going to treat the communists the same as they did the Nazis. And I was worried with modern day stuff. Try not to get political about it. I was worried they were going to like gloss over or even fucking like ball wash, the Soviets. But what I think they're doing instead, I think they're leaning into the. I talked about it in earlier streams. There's a certain term for it. I don't know the term anymore. But they're leaning into the very over-the-top Russian stereotype, KGB, that very Red Alert style. So it's actually pretty cool. So I was worried about that, but I think it's actually going pretty well. Alright, the Soviet regime has long made efforts to make use of these individuals as intelligence assets, staying abreast of supposedly secret developments by the nations long before they ever come to the public. Goes back to that earlier little snippet I read from the British about how people in the factory get pissed because they took our jobs. Those clankers, took their jobs at the factory, and they're kind of upset about it. That's absolutely going to feed into the Soviets. I can't wait to see that. That's going to be a good little map for you. You can have like a little factory inside like London and have a bunch of communist sympathizers supported by like sisters or daughters of the revolution or daughters of the motherland or some Siberian terrorists. Would be pretty cool. Hey, Squidfist, what's going on, buddy? How you doing? Squidfist, I'll definitely talk about it next stream when we talk more about October and talk more about 40K. But I will tell you, unfortunately, your truck was the first truck to die in my 500-point game. It's the only truck that died, but it's the first model they targeted and they took out. It was a noble charge. It charged up the right flank. The big shooter gunned down a Marine. And then they had some kind of like Hell Blaster squad with some NCO. They did some Oath of Moments, Devastator Protocol, some Wombo Mambo combo, and they just laid deadly plasma fire into that truck and just absolutely took it out. So it served well. It killed a guy before it got destroyed, but the boys hopped out and the boys walked up and started crumping those gits good. So just thought I'd let you know how your Rhino did. It got first blood, but it also got wrecked. All right, back to Konflikt 47. When the Western Allies gifted Germany with the power of the Red, like they put in quotation marks, Red Army soldiers were the first to suffer the consequences of the Axis resurgence. That makes sense. They would have tested their Rift tech against the Soviets first. The most immediate blow, however, was when the U.S. President Roosevelt's speech declaring America's crusade against Nazism and communism, and since Stalin declared the United States an enemy of the state on the 1st of May, 1944, instantly severing the alliance of convenience and leaving the Soviet Union to fight on, supported only by those conquering territories and their shit tons of spies, by the way, which was assimilated and growing into the Soviet bloc. The goal of the Soviet bloc is simple. The triumph spread of communism across the world. To accomplish this, the Soviet leaders know they must have a rift of their own making, making Dresden the ultimate prize in their war plans. Maybe with all their spies, maybe they'll learn about Iwo Jima, and maybe the Soviets will try and launch a sneak mission to try and either take Los Alamos, maybe come in from Mexico to take Los Alamos, or maybe they'll try and take Iwo Jima. Imagine! Oh my god, are you guys ready for this? Like, close your eyes and take a trip to Imagination Station, right? Imagine this on a board, right? Like a huge apocalyptic game. Close your eyes and imagine this. Travel with me, fellow travelers. So imagine it's an Iwo Jima landing, but instead of United States Marine Corps versus the Imperial Japanese in the late 40s, you have the Soviet Navy landing shit tons of conscripts on Iwo Jima beaches, trying to assault and take them, what is very likely a rift inside the volcano, with the Imperial Japanese Army and Navy trying to repel them. So imagine a big ass Iwo Jima board, but it's Soviets versus Imperial Japanese. Oh god, you feel that? That is a day or possibly 2 days straight of solid, damn good Konflikt 47 wargaming right there. That's what I want to see. You know, D-Day style, Iwo Jima style, size-wise of Soviet landings. Just wave after wave. Send in the next wave. Send in the next wave. That's what I want to see. All right. So we got next coming. Yes, Imperial Japanese versus USSR starter would be awesome. That would be absolutely amazing. Oh, nice. And their big double spread is actually Soviets fighting against the British, which is interesting. And it looks like they're fighting in the streets. Here we have it, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, sword-swinging subjects of all ages, the Empire of Japan for Konflikt 47. Oh, it feels good. You can feel it right off the page. It feels like this is naturally where the book should open. Like this is the correct starting point for the book. Let me check the poll, see how everything's doing. Oh, look at that. People are saying the USSR had the best glow up. That's interesting. All right. It's like gross. Man, I was about to. Oh man, I am so glad because I'm pretty tired, so I almost just let it slip. Whoo! I almost said something that would have got the stream canceled. It would have been a funny joke. I thought it would have been funny, but I would not have been appropriate. Damn you, Sean! You almost baited me to saying something hilarious and controversial. Whoo! I'll send it. Actually, no. Let me send you a a message. I sent Gene a message. No, I'm not going to. All right, anyways. Oh man, the real me almost came out there for a second. Unfiltered. All right. Hey, what's going on? What's going on, buddy? It is the man, the myth, the legend, the true power behind Morning Glory's throne. It is his editor, the one and only. Alright, so the Empire of Japan, after half a decade of war, despite the vast resources arrayed against it, the Empire of Japan reigns supreme over Asia. Battles between mighty fleets and great armies still rage across the islands of the Western Pacific and through the jungles of Burma and India. Yet the Japanese home islands remain unsullied by war. In China, the nationalists and communists alike have been driven into the hinterlands, and the Japanese troops now face off against Soviet forces awaiting the coming storm. Nice, okay, so that's confirmed. The Chinese nationalists and communists have kind of been beaten back, and now it's the Empire of Japan / the Empire of Manchuria up against the Soviets. Yeah, I'm reading the whole book. There's not much lore. I'll be making videos on it, of course, but yeah, I'm just kind of reading through the whole book since it's been released today. Let's see what we got here. Awaiting the coming storm. Justice with the Axis, the opening of the rifts seen as a reversal in Japan's fortunes from the slow march of inevitable defeat to fight on much more evenly terms, where victory hangs tantalizing within reach. So we have here. The United States crusade continues its grinding advance across the Pacific, island after island becoming charnel houses as savage fighting intensifies still further by new, deadlier Rift-Tech weaponry. The Axis 2 are no longer the firm friends they once were. Prizing their achievements dearly, the Imperial Japanese refused to share their most advanced Rift-Tech breakthroughs with those who had given them their start. And it had angered Axis leadership. And while the two great powers remain technically allied, it seems clear that the trend continues. The situation will deteriorate rapidly. Imperial Japanese propaganda reminds the population daily, in no uncertain terms, that their lives belong to their guardian emperor, and it is for him that they will work, fight, and die with unanswered or unswerving loyalty. Oh man, this is getting good. Yeah, I saw that. That was a hilariously timed meme, Evan. Well done. I was like, ooh. I could tell by the timing it wasn't on purpose. I was like, ooh, man, what are the odds? Well, yeah, I mean, to be fair, the Axis just shared Rift-Tech with him to make him a speed bump to slow down the crazy religious fundamentalists from charging across the Pacific. The Empire of Japan's like, all right, fine. We will snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. And they're smart. Like I said, they have lower populations, so they're leaning more into stealth. They're leaning more into hit and run. Not a bad idea, especially when you have home field advantage. Bonsai indeed. Yeah, I'm definitely excited. So I have a whole bunch of the OG Ghost Attack Squad. I will be painting them up in IJN colors. I think I'll be running IJN first for Konflikt 47 while I build up a bigger Imperial Japanese army. I'm super excited for Once Upon a December and April. I will be rolling with mad Imperial Japanese tanks and walkers. Alright, another little short story for the Green Vault. Interesting. Alright, here's the chronological lore. It's kind of done fucking Dexter style here. Okay, we have 1940. Let's see what we're looking for the divergence. Originally, the divergence was in 1942 when they dropped the first atomic weapon in Los Alamos. You know, once they put that in the air, once they popped it in the rift, that's what made it different. So not 1942. This is Midway and Operation Torch. Alright, we're just looking for the divergence. Okay, 1944, the first A-bomb test occurs in Los Alamos, New Mexico, and it opens a rift. Okay, so that's it. The official divergence. So your Konflikt 47 day is going to be 6th February 1944. Yeah, you say that, RK. We'll see if you can stop the tide of Chiha tanks. I'm just gonna read out a few of these, you know. So we have 1st of May, 1947. Soviet Union declares the United States to be an enemy of the state. Oh my. 6th of June, 1947. D-Day, U.S. Commonwealth forces land in Normandy. Okay, so now it happens in 47. 19th June 1947, the Battle of the Philippine Sea sees both the United States Navy and the Imperial Japanese Navy lose major carriers in a hard-fought draw. Ooh. 22nd of June in 1947, Soviets begin the offensive that will push the German forces back to Warsaw. Oh shit, here you go. 28th of July, right? So remember, 6th of June is when U.S. Commonwealth forces land in Normandy, right? 28th of July, U.S. forces finally break out of Normandy. Damn. And then here you go on the 29th of July, 1947. The Axis leadership unleashes the dreaded Totencourt in Normandy. Damn. So as soon as they finally break out, boom, they unleash all the zombies. What the fuck? Oh, okay. Well, alright, check it out. We got a typo here. So we have the 6th of June, D-Day. U.S. and Commonwealth forces land in Normandy. 8th September, D-Day. U.S. Commonwealth forces land in Normandy. So a small typo. I think this 8th September is supposed to be something else different. So, this 8th September is supposed to be something else. Let's see what we have. 26th of October, British and Soviet forces clash near Mashhad in northern Iran. Nice, here we go. We have, for those of you who are more desertly inclined, here we go. We have British and USSR, just like I covered in a lot of the lore videos. They're scrapping over the oil fields in Iran. So, oh man, I wish I had like a world. That's what. So, the other thing, I know, I shouldn't bitch. I didn't write the product, so who am I to complain, right? I'm just one guy who bought one book. And I'm gonna say this because I'm doing this in the crusade that I'm building, right? When you make a book like this, when you make a setting, when you make a military campaign, it is extraordinarily important to put a map. So when if you have a double page like this where it has all the dates and stuff like that, the very next page needs to be a map, and you mark the cities that are referenced in here. Luckily, a lot of us are fucking nerds, which is glorious, so we know where stuff is on maps. Oh my god. So what you guys may not know is a lot of my days off, I teach. And one of the many things I teach is terrestrial navigation and general geography and map reading and how to operate, you know, with maps and other types of navigation, such as electronic navigation and celestial navigation. Right? Nerd shit. So, a lot of people don't know where shit is on a map. Not getting political, no one freak out. This isn't a political point one way or the other. I'm just stating this. If you were to line up every single high school student in the United States and tell them, hey, point to Palestine on a map, they could not find it. I would solidly bet 70 to 75% could not locate it on a map. With no electronic assistance, I guarantee they could not locate it. And the only reason why I mentioned that place is because it's so prevalent in the news and social media. So of all the places to point out, they should be able to point out that one, right? Like, if nothing on the map was labeled, they could not point it out. So with this, luckily, yeah, Tiki the not so silent cartographer, right? So with this, a world map, and you guys will see it on my videos too. Usually on the cover, there's a map, and as I go along in those lore videos, every chapter or so, every time it changes a year, I put up a map, that way you can kind of keep track of what the hell's going on, you know? So, that would have been cool to see if they would have put a map in it, just like they did in the old Konflikt 47 book, but it's alright. So it looks like I'm gonna sit down and I'm gonna bust out the old books and I'm gonna listen to my videos, which is cringe as fuck, I know. But it seems like a lot of the lore is pretty similar. Nah, I think some of the days may have changed, but a lot of the lore is kind of similar. You know, Brussels becoming a focal point, you know, in 1947. U.S. deploys first Tesla guns on the battlefield and attempt to drive the Germans from Brussels, 12th May. The Imperial Japanese Armed Forces formed the first Ghost Battalions. Ooh. That made me tingle downstairs. 1st of June. Let's see. Allied forces in Italy held up by the Gustav Line south of Rome on the 2nd of July. Yeah, that tracks. Yeah, this is... Okay, so I'm not trying to be an asshole. They don't put the years with it, and it goes from 1944, it says 1945, 1946, 1947. It makes no fucking sense. This page, it looks good, but it does not make sense for reading. You have no idea what shit is. I'm thinking maybe this is all 1944. This is 1945. This is 1946. This is 1947. It's almost like I feel like I'm almost trying to read like a fucking diesel punk manga. This is weird. Sorry, you're getting a lot more like uncensored me, like my pure raw emotions here. Yeah, so I'm sorry, I had these years wrong. All this stuff, I think this is all 1944, which makes more sense. So 1944. And then 1945 down here, but then you jump back over to this page for 1946, and then 1940. What the? Who did this? Bad. This is just... I like them going by the date, but the least they could have done is just put like apostrophe 44, apostrophe 45, apostrophe 46. They could have at least put... looking at it now, I think it goes, so you can see kind of what it looks like on the other side. And you're like, maybe the red doesn't delineate. So I think this all here is 1944, and then 1945, and then back over here to 46. Ooh, that's not well done. I'm gonna stop looking at that because it's just upsetting. There's the classic art we know and love. Jenny, when you say my problem is my map knowledge is based on 1940 maps, it reminds me of the hilarious Simpsons episode where Mr. Burns like, oh, I have stocks, let me see what I have, and he has like slave trading companies and like, I think it's like whale oil companies, like how are those stocks doing? And he has to like blow the dust off them. But like, I don't think those exist anymore. All right, I am slap happy, coffee, caffeine fueled, and uncensored. Let's keep plugging through this book. How many streams does it take for me to get canceled? Let's see. I think it's gonna take 80. How's Yugoslavia doing? Well, Yugoslavia. I think in 1940, currently, it's been better. Actually, that is one of the countries I didn't travel to that I really wanted to. Not Yugoslavia, but I really wanted to go to Romania. I went to Croatia and I loved it. I didn't get a chance to make it over to Romania. It's definitely on my bucket list. I know it sounds cheesy, it sounds trite. Feel free to make fun of me and lambast me. I do want to visit all the castles in Romania. I want to go to Transylvania and stuff like that. I think it'd be really, really cool. So it's definitely on my bucket list to make it back over to Romania. Like, nothing against, I know we have people from all over the world who watch the stream, and I appreciate it. Nothing against the fair lands of the British Isles, but if I'm going to Europe, I'd much rather go to places like Romania or Croatia or stuff like that. Travel that area. Espresso and tonic, yeah. Funny you say that, RK. On that cruise, the first time I went on that cruise, I drank nothing but espresso martinis the whole time, and I was getting amped. So we'll see what I do this time. Alright, basic supplies, nothing crazy. Tape measure, 6-sided dice, order dice, riff dice, dice bag, templates and tokens. If you're a war gamer, this is all just kind of basic boilerplate stuff. Squid is like, we don't have any castles. HS, I stopped kind of looking at it because it's so terribly laid out that it was annoying me. So I stopped looking at it. I'll have to go down and actually, like, figure out what the fuck is what. I'm gonna have to literally write in the years myself. Reorganize it, and then compare it to the lore from the original books. So far, once I fixed the years and figured out what was going on, it looks like it's pretty in line with the original lore, so that's kind of good. So you still have your fire, advance, run, ambush, rally, and down die. Dice bag, a lot of us still use our Crown Royal bags. Alright, let's talk about the rift die. So you have surging, which looks like the irritated butthole. You have the active, which is an eyeball, and you have exhausted, which is blank. Not sure if you guys saw the... Oh, you know what, hold on. I got something for this, give me a second. And I will put a caption on the video too. It'll be like, I will change it from paint and chat to just like the stream number 80, unplugged and uncensored. Oh man. Alright. I want to make sure there's no price on it. They are fucking expensive. Alright. So, Rift Dice. Currently, there are 5 colors. You have what is labeled as blue, what is labeled as red, what is labeled as green, what is labeled as yellow, and labeled as gray. Now, what goes with what? So first off, you look at gray. That shit looks like tiger eye, or almost like some kind of like tan, right? And then when you actually see them, they're like black. So anyways, what dice go with what faction? As an Imperial Japanese player, I was like, I don't think yellow's the correct choice. I mean, the uniforms are tan, but that's getting almost like Power Ranger level of colorism, you know? I'm like, ooh, we'll see how that goes, right? So, I didn't get yellow. I wanted to get red for the Empire of the Rising Sun, but then the commies. I was like, oh yeah, the commies are going to pick red, right? I heard the Americanos come with green, and I heard the Axis came with gray, which I thought the Axis would come with green for Green Vault. So all I heard was no one said shit about blue. So I figured Tiki Tears, you know, Tropical, more importantly, my IJN Force, you know, the Surf Ninjas, I went with blue. So let's see what the blue dice look like. Oh, first ever Tiki unboxing video. It's going wild. You can see my watch tan. Alright, there we go. We got blue dye. Alright. So these are blue. Luckily there's light here, so let me dick around with the light so you can see. They don't seem the most blue, they just seem dark. Then when you pick up one, you hold it up to the light, it gets a little translucent, you can see it's blue. So, what you're seeing here is you have 6 facing. The irritated butthole, the 2 eyes, and the 3 nothings, right? So you have three facings that are nothing, nothing, and nothing. You're gonna have 2 eyeballs, 1 eyeball, 1 eyeball, and then you have this thing right here, right? Alright, so there we go. We got... Oh shit, where'd I put the bag now? There it is. Alright, so now you can see what blue dice look like, and I actually went with blue. That's what we're gonna read to find out. I have no idea how this shit works. I haven't read yet on even how to play. We shall find out together, my fist of squiddiness. Yeah, because of one stream, it'll now forever be known as the butthole. There's the name for the Konflikt 47 podcast. You know, our ballad of boxcars and buttholes. Copyright. Oh man, that's classic. That's gonna be good. Alright. Alright, let's get into it here. So the presence of Rift energy in Konflikt 47 is a factor on the battlefield. Rift units increase the amount of localized Rift energy and can use it in different ways. The Rift dice are used to indicate how much energy a Rift unit has available to it to enhance its effectiveness on the battle space. Each player will need a number of Rift dice equal to the total number generated by the Rift units. Each player will need a number of Rift dice equal to the total number generated by their Rift units, as designated by their army list entries. As with order dice, these need to be distinctly colored, so it's obvious to which force they belong. Each Rift dice has 6 faces: a face depicting a surging icon, butthole, 2 depicting an active icon, the eyeballs, and then 3 that are blank or exhausted. Damn it. Fuck. I was hoping we got away from templates. That's one thing I loved about Konflikt 47 was no templates. I feel templates, there's nothing wrong with templates, right? But templates are one of those slippery slopes. I know this is a very shitty thing to say because it's dependent on the person. It's not the template's fault. Templates can often bring out the wacka in people. Personal experience. I think RK was there, I'm not sure. It may have been the first Malta game. But I was playing a game with some friends, and everyone was pretty cool until the templates came out. And one player that wasn't RK one player took a template and was trying to finagle to get as many units as possible in her template, to the point where he was jostling my units and actually knocked a few down because he was trying to get so rough trying to put his template over him. And the issue was, he asked, like, hey, how many can I get? And, you know, we're all friends here, so you would try and give him the maximum. Like, oh, you put it right here. I think the best you're going to get is 5, maybe 4. We'll give you 5. And that answer wasn't good enough, so they went in there and just fucking, like, manhandled that shit and knocked over as many as they could. Like, oh, I see 6. You're like, not, what are you doing? You know, like, are you kidding me? So, templates slow down gameplay too, because you're gonna stop, you're gonna sit there and you'd be like, oh, how can I get the most amount of kills possible? There's nothing wrong with that kind of mentality. Like, you want to pick a good target, of course, you know, but you kind of know that ahead of time. I know you can't pre-measure, which is fine, but templates, I think, slow down gameplay, whereas dice, you kind of, you know, original Konflikt 47, you just roll a dice. Like, hey, how many units are you gonna hit? You roll a dice, like, okay, cool, I hit 4 units. There's no arguing there. You live by the trade, die by the trade, roll the dice, cool, good to go. When you bring in stuff like this, you're bringing in the possibility of people to get on either side. Either people to either be whack about it, or people like me who get upset, like, hey, can you not fuck with my units, please, that I painted? Like, thanks, and gig them. So, I'm not a fan of templates, but it is what it is. Because you also have to be like, oh, how are you interpreting this template? Is it over this way, or do I measure this way, that way? Versus you already have a dice mechanic in your game. I feel like you're incorporating extra. It's like that Rick and Morty thing. This is just slavery with extra steps. I was like, this is just killing with extra. You already have a dice mechanic for this. Because then also you have guys spacing out their units, so it's not as effective. It leads into a whole bunch of things. It's one of the few things I agree with. I do miss, like, scatter dice, and I miss the flamer template for Warhammer 40k. But I'm glad they got away from indirect fire template. I always found that kind of weird, because it brings up too much arguments on the tabletop as far as, like, oh, they're undercover, or they're right here, oh, this misses, and okay, that only covers part of this base, but okay, I have it modeled this way. It raises more questions than it answers. But that could just be me. I don't know. Maybe I'm not a fun guy to play. I'm not sure. All right. So yes, it's the same HE template that you have from Bolt Action. Tokens, like fucking Middle Earth. You have a turret jam. Nice. I'm glad. Hopefully they're bringing that back, and it's not just a token. Artillery barrage, engine damage or airstrike. You have indirect fire token, immobilized, snap 2 action, and hidden steering. Pin markers. Okay, those are all pretty much similar. So it looks like a lot of your stuff from Bolt Action 3rd edition is going to carry over as far as your templates and your tokens. Yeah, when it comes to templates, usually, like I said, outside of that one example where it was obvious, you know, he was like knocking over models. I'm like, really? Usually, I always just give benefit of the doubt. You know, I'm like, yeah, you know, if it's 4 but it looks like 5, just give them 5. You know, because they paid the points for that unit. They want to drop HE and kill something. Of course, that's perfectly fine. You know, I enjoy Cinemax and a good time. I always give people the benefit of the doubt. The Tolkien token. All right. Conventions of War, measuring distance, no pre-measuring, which is nice. This talks about distance between models and units. If you're a war gamer, you're pretty familiar with that. Line of sight. Okay, here we go. To determine what a model can see, take a look from behind the model to get a soldier's eye view of the battlefield. When doing so, ignore intervening infantry and artillery units, friend or foe, as we suppose that the troops would be hunkered down against fire. Vehicles and terrain cannot be ignored, however, they will literally block the line of sight of your models. If the torso or head of an enemy model can be seen clearly from the model's point of view, we can assume the model has line of sight to that enemy. If only a peripheral part of the model can be seen, such as an arm, leg, or backpack, or the barrel of a weapon, the enemy cannot be seen because we assume that they are just too many obstacles. Same is true for vehicles. If all that can be seen is a radio antenna, exhaust pipe, the barrel of a gun, or some other extraneous detail, then we assume the model cannot be seen. The vehicle amongst the smoke and dust of battle. So far, no infinitely high ruins. We'll keep reading and see if that's the case. Yes. Oh my god. Yeah. RK, thank you. Oh, sweet Jesus. Oh god. Yeah. RK's bringing up a... I feel better. I feel vindicated that it wasn't just me. Yeah, that's the other thing too. Me and RK were trying to like figure out melee combat and who lost in there. And this other person was running around pulling units for us and like putting them in dead piles. We're like, hey, what are you doing? Like, what's going on? It was a weird situation. So it's just like the thing at Berlin. Like, I didn't have a good time. I thought maybe I'm just the asshole. Then I look over and RK's just fucking miserable. And I'm like, okay, cool. It's not just me. All right. Alright, dense terrain. Players should agree when they set up the battlefield which elements of terrain are to be treated as dense terrain. This will influence line of sight. Sometimes a scattering of tree models, tumbled ruins, rocks, or such like can stand in for a fairly dense tangle of woodland rubble or rocky outcropping, which is impractical to represent literally on the battlefield. It is enough for players to know what is being represented in these cases. Makes sense. Units can draw line of sight into and out of dense terrain, but cannot draw line of sight entirely through it. Okay, that hasn't changed. Dense terrain is always assumed to be higher than any model on the table and blocks line of sight for all units. What? Okay, yeah, alright. I already don't like this. So, it looks like they are bringing in the infinite high bullshit. Alright. Yeah, see if you can. So you see right here in this pictograph, you have a tank up on the hill, troops right there, and you have troops over here, and you have dense terrain in between, right? They're saying that neither one of these units can see that German unit. Even though if you look behind the tank, you can clearly see the German unit. They're saying, right here. I'll read this again. Units can draw a line of sight into and out of dense terrain, but cannot draw a line of sight entirely through it. Dense terrain is always assumed to be higher than any model on the table and blocks line of sight for all units. So again, now to be fair, never seen Letterkenny, it's a thing from there. Alright, to be fair. I think they're writing the rules for competitive players. In the book, it needs to... I understand why in the book they're writing it for competitive stuff. That way there's not a fight over rules as written versus rules as intended. So it's good to read this to see like, hey, this is what this wants. And what I'm a big fan of, and I'm a huge fan of this, just like I love kit bashing, I like house rules. As long as everybody agrees to it and you're not bullying anybody into house rules. You know, discuss all the rules ahead of time before you play and talk about what you're going to be doing. As you're saying, Squig Hunter Sean, but it's not. Look, if you look at this, it's not just trees. Like I said, it's also, if you look, it's also this building, the building that they supply in their kit. That's the ruins that you get from their starter box for bolt action, right? Now, once you're above a build, like if you can see over a building, you can see over a building, because then you start talking about. Then there's no point. If you play like this, then what you're playing is a physical version of Tabletop Simulator or, you know, Company of Heroes. You're playing a 2D video game. Tabletop wargaming is a three-dimensional battle space. So if you play a game like Bolt Action, which relies heavily on terrain, but then you alter the way terrain works where it's not realistic, then you just have decoration and a 3D representation of a 2D battle space. In which case, you might as well just be playing Company of Heroes or Tabletop Simulator. Now, this is not for competitive. It's its own animal. I don't step into competitive's ring, and I ask competitive don't step into my ring, right? And that's fair, and that's why we talk about, you know, you go over each piece of terrain. People are like, hey, how high are these trees? Like, okay, they're this high. Okay, cool, fine, fair enough. Because this way, you know, you're not going to put a sniper in a bell tower. What's the point? If he gets no benefit of elevation, what the hell's the point? Because then here comes the question: if it's blocking line of sight, what else does it block? Can you shoot a mortar over the trees? Because if the trees are infinitely high, and it sounds like I'm taking it to the point of ridiculousness, but we literally had that happen where we couldn't shoot because it was insane. Because when you do your forward-air observers, so let me ask you this: when you have dense terrain that's assumed to be taller than any other model. So originally it said any other model, which I can understand that. The way they phrased it, any other model kind of makes sense. I get that. Hold on. Hold on. Let me get some guys out here. Let's talk about this. Oh, perfect. Okay, sorry, I forgot I was muted. All right, yeah, I reached my whole desk space, so I'm trying not to like show all my whole house, you know. But first off, you're asking a lot of questions. Why don't you have Squidward's house? Number two, it's going to be a conversion for my orcs. That's going to be my big boss head bunker. But all right. Trying to get this on camera. Okay, cool. Here we go. Alright, so let's assume this guy right here is in this window, Squidward's house, right? So alright, so we'll say he's in this right window, right? This window right here. And you have that model down there. Now hold on. Now you have a forest. You have a forest in between Squidward's hut, this right window, and that model down there. Per the rules, what it's saying is that you cannot shoot a Nox and a Moon, right? You can't shoot her. It's saying that these trees, this dense terrain, is assumed to be higher than any other model. Now, those any other model, I'd agree. What I mean by that is if I had another model here, he can't see through those trees. I like that. That's okay. That works for me. Same thing if it was a tank. Let's say it was a really high tank, and it still can't see through the trees. I'm okay with that, right? That works. It's kind of like going back to what Sean said, where you'd have to like detail the actual height of trees. That would be a huge pain in the ass. Okay, I'm 100% understand. I get it. That's fine. The problem is when you look on the book, when you look in this example, that tank is on a hill. The tank has elevation and can easily see over those ruins to see those models. You can get behind the tank, you can see what it can see. When I understand why they're doing it to make it a little bit more simplistic, but you're taking the actual tactics out of a war game. Alright, let's see what you're saying. Okay, now get behind me and tell me what he can see. You can't. No, I can't. I can put my eye level behind my terrain, and you can see like, hey, here's the eye hole right here. Here are the trees. Here's a Nox and a Moon. If you're in this window, you can see over the tree line. I can absolutely tell with real line of sight what the guy can see, what he can't see. But again, Sean is 100% correct by the book, and that's the best. He is technically correct, which is the best type of correct, right? He is not wrong, and he is exactly correct. But in defense of what Sean is saying, if I'm playing strangers in a tournament, I don't have time to sit there and play fuck games and figure out true line of sight, what I can see, what you can't see. It goes right back to me talking about templates. You're going to sit there and you're going to try and monkey around and figure out what's the best, most optimal thing. It's going to slow down the gameplay. So I totally understand why they have the rule. And Sean is not wrong, not by any stretch of the imagination. It's just because I play more narrative and friendly games, and I try and focus a little bit more on bringing realistic tactics to the tabletop game, making it more of a tabletop game and less of a, physical video game. I disagree with those rules. I don't think infinitely tall, dense terrain is a good idea. Because what if you have the flight keyword? Yeah, that's the other thing too. Yeah, if you can't, if it blocks line of sight, same thing. If it blocks line of sight, what about calling in an aircraft? What about when you do like an airstrike? Can the plane see? Because it says anti-model. It sounds like I'm getting pedantic, and I'm not trying to. I'm not trying to take the piss out of this. I know they play tested it, but if let's say homeboy here with the Book of Life and Book of Death here. So you have a Nox and a Moon on one side, and you have the priest with the Book of Death on the other. So if he calls in an airstrike, what if like what if there's flak everywhere? So you're saying the aircraft has to come back this way? I see what you're saying where it says dense terrain is always assumed to be higher than any models on the table. Okay, so your exact way is, the exact verbiage is dense terrain is always assumed to be higher than any model on the table and blocks line of sight for all units. So are you saying like calling it an airstrike is an attack and not a unit? That's getting really into the weeds. Like I said, I get why they have the rules written that way. I personally don't agree, but that's just my opinion. Alright, let me move my trees back. I'm glad I had all that terrain. And a Squidward's house. You never know when you need Squidward's house, apparently. I do. I have some models made off Rick O'Connell, Evie O'Connell, and Evie's brother. Show me the play. No, well, it says unit. It doesn't say. So it says dense terrain is always assumed to be higher than any model on the table and blocks line of sight for all units. So it uses two different words. It uses the words model and unit. So that's why I'm assuming what their meaning is that it's an attack. Yes, but they're not needed. You're correct. That's why I'm assuming it's an attack. But I can already see people saying, "Oh, you can't attack over that vector. You can't attack on that line because there's no line of sight." Well, same thing. So it's interesting because the question is, how are you going to use forward air observers? It seems like it severely hampers snipers and forward air observers. If you can't see over terrain, then you're not going to be putting your forward air observers or snipers on hills or in building or on rooftops. Your forward air observers, artillery observers, and snipers all going to have to be on the ground shooting at other targets on the ground over a flat horizontal thing. that doesn't make good war sense, if that makes sense. It's like giving your sniper a bayonet, you know? Like it seems kind of odd. But again, hey, again, to be fair and to give credence to what Sean's. No, and I get what you're saying, but what I'm saying is now for the air observers, they've lost their kind of. You've almost lost the whole point of an air observer and sniper. If you can't give them the benefit of elevation, then no one's ever gonna go up onto a hill or up into a building. You're kind of restricting a lot of. And I get what you're saying, Sean. I really do. I'm not trying to pick a fight with you. And I get why it's written this way, and it makes a lot of sense. And again, when we ran into it, it was a tournament guy who's like, "Oh, that's how it works. It's infinitely high." It's just one of those things. It's I get why it's written that way, but it seems a bit silly. But then once we started getting into other units, they bring up a good point. We started talking about how flying works. It's gonna be very interesting to see how a flying unit will work with infinitely high line of sight blocking dense terrain. That's going to be interesting to see. You don't put snipers on elevation. I went to that school. It's a movie thing. Oh my god. I wish you would have told my flight officer that before I damn near almost lost like a finger to frostbite on an ATC tower. Freezing to death. I'll never forget, dude. It was December in northern Italy, and we were posted as a two-man team on the ATC tower. We had binoculars, and the dude had an ACOG in his M4, and they expected us to hit something. Absolutely not. I'll never forget, we were trying to keep warm with like sterno camp stoves that fires invisible, and the only like gear we had were our ponchos, so we like melted both our ponchos trying to get closer to the sterno can. Oh Jesus. Yeah, he's not wrong. You do put down a marker, and more so. The reason why I talk about the airstrikes, if you've played Bolt Action 3rd Edition, you're very familiar with how dangerous flak can be. A good example, RK brought shit tons of flak to Malta. So when you bring in your airstrikes, it's just like kind of racking and stacking aircraft at different angles. You know, like when you do emergency close air supports like that, you kind of rack and stack your aircraft, and you want to bring them in different areas. Unless you're fighting Zulus. So when you're bringing in these airstrikes, you actually get to pick what direction the aircraft. I know it's not a model. Bear with me here, but you get to pick what direction the aircraft is coming into. We'll go on and see if dense terrain carries over to buildings. So you actually get to pick in what vector the aircraft comes in on, and that's good for dodging flak. Like let's say. Like, let's say for whatever reason these models have flak, and we'll bring in the same rule, right? So we'll bring in these infinitely high line of sight blocking dense terrain. So far we're just talking dense terrain. We're not talking about ruins yet, which is nice. So far it's just dense terrain, right? So let's say these models are sitting on a I don't. Hold on, let's see what I have over here in my. Okay, I do have something, right? Alright, so let's say they're sitting here. Let's call this an anti-aircraft gun, right? Like a 20 millimeter. So you have a 20 millimeter crewed by two assholes, right? And you got trees. And let's say you have a target over here on the other side of the trees. Now, these trees are dense terrain. Alright, so when you're bringing in your airstrike, you can choose wherever you place your marker and it attacks you, you can choose how you want to bring it in. So what they're saying is if I bring my airstrike in, hold on, let me move this, it makes a little more sense. So if I bring my airstrike in directly over these mummies on this side of the tree line, you're saying that this unit here, no matter how far away from the tree line it is, it can't draw line of sight over the tree line to my attacking aircraft. So it's not just, you know, for the aircraft people, it's also for the flak vehicles. You know, if you have a dense terrain, you know, next to a vehicle with the flak special rule, call it like a whirlwind, whatever you want, it can't shoot over those trees to an aircraft. That's wild, you know, because that's going to block the line of sight of flak. So it's going to dictate how you call in your airstrikes as well. Alright. Again, I'm not a game designer. I don't think I could design any better. I'm just saying, anytime you have infinitely high stuff, I think it's a bit worrisome. Now, you can say ahead of time, like, hey, I think these trees are that high. Okay, hold on. Well, those trees are only 7 feet tall, like your terrain represents. Yeah, and that's fine. Or you can say, like, hey, these trees are this tall. You know? You can be like, hey, this piece of terrain right here, that's why before you play a game are like this tall. But we'll see how it goes. Alright, let's see what else we got. Alright, that's dense terrain. Like I said, in this picture it makes sense. I get that, that's fine. But the elevation one's what bugs me. You should be able to see over buildings. Talks about table boundaries, talks about reroll. Sometimes a rule will allow you to reroll dice. This lets you pick up any dice you have. Yeah, no. Sean, I don't expect you to defend the rule. And just like I said, I understand why it's written that way, and it makes sense for tournament play, because you always have to worry about the whackers and shit like that. I'm just saying it's definitely something we'll be home ruling. We'll be doing what we call true line of sight. You know, like, hey, can you see over that shit? Yeah, alright, cool. Alright, sometimes a rule will allow you to reroll a dice result. This lets you pick up dice you have just rolled and roll them the second time. You must accept and adhere to the second result, even if it's worse than the first one. The only exception to this is if a hero is expending a point of luck, and we'll get into those. Alright. Damn, it jumped through terrain fast. Shit, it just talked about dense terrain, that's it. And then dense terrain actually has a picture of a ruin. So it's not just me taking the piss out of it and debating, like, you know, Arbor Day with trees and shit. This is actually a ruin from the box they sell, and they call it literally dense terrain. So I'm not being pedantic. Well, so far they only have dense terrain, so we'll see what else they get into. Alright. So it talks about units. You have infantry, artillery, and vehicles. So V dimension, let's see what this... it's just kind of more lore stuff. Einstein said the fourth dimension was time, but the Allied intelligence indicates that the Axis scientists seem to use the term V dimension. Now, spoiler alert, the Imperial Japanese have their own term for this fourth dimension, which actually gets pretty cool. It's almost kind of more like a Event Horizon. When discussing what they think is beyond the rifts, others have contradicted this theory, contending that it is really a mistranslation of many dimensions. Ah, okay, cool. A scant few sources also use the term Uberwelt, indicating an upper world or greater reality. Ooh, so it could be like the green vaults leading into like Norse mythology, kind of. What's the name of the big ass tree? Not Groot, but Yggdrasil? Is Yggdrasil the name of the big ass tree? I think so. So it could be kind of cool. You could see the green vault leaning into more of like Norse mythology. That's kind of cool. All right, unit profiles. All units account for 47 of the unit profile, which provides all relative information for using these models in the game, including the number of models in the unit, special rules, and Rift. Hey, thanks, Nathan. And the upgrades they can take. Each unit's profile can be found in a relevant army list. Okay. page 164 for further details at the table below. Alright. So this just shows you an example of the squad. You have the unit composition, requisition points, the unit type, specialist infantry and grade 2 augmented power armor, quality veteran, standard weapon, Stig 44 Zulu. Put together a wall brick by brick. Damage value is 7+, base size 32mm. Special rules, augmented, large, wide formation. We'll talk about wide formations later. I took a look at that. So Rift unit, it is a Rift unit, Rift Dice 1, active Rift, Wolf's March. When given an advance order, a stall troop and squad can opt to pass an order test automatically and discard all of its pin markers. If it does so, exhaust its Rift Dice after it's completed its advance order. Damn, it's almost like a fucking mechanical bonsai. Surging bonus, it gains +1 pin at close quarters. Exhausted penalty gains a slow roll. So the Rift Dice is kind of like a, so far it seems kind of like a risk-reward mechanic, you know? Squad upgrade options. Oh, this is what I wanted to see. So this is hot. Points per model. Yes. This is still a modular game as far as paying points for upgrades. Always good to see. Okay, so you have formations. A unit consists of more than one model. Its members must remain in formation. When a unit is deployed at the start of the game, with each time the unit moves, the models must remain in a group, with each model being no more than 1 inch away from the other model in the same unit. If the model should become separated from the other model, for example, become the unit taking casualties, those must be corrected to the next issued order. Wide formation. Over here. In Konflikt 47, some units can use the wide formation special rule, typically larger and bulkier models. For example, the Stahltruppen. It may spread out more by having up to 2 inches between models in their unit. Where this is the case, it'll be noted in the army list entry. So the Schreckwolfen unit has the wide formation, so that each model can be up to 2 inches apart. So normal troops can be 1, these can be 2. 1 inch gap. To help prevent units becoming muddled or positions confused during battle, units must always end their movement at a distance of 1 inch away from any other friendly model. That's pretty common in wargaming. So the wide formation, that's new. I haven't seen that in a wargame yet. Talks a little bit more about Rift units over here. Alright, let's talk about the turn. Preparing to play. Turn sequence. You have the order phase, the turn end phase, and game ends. Okay, order phase. Draw a die from the die bag and hand it to the owning player. The player will then do the sequence below. If it is an order die. So it looks like your order dice and your Rift dice do go in the same bag, to answer your question. If it is an order die, let me catch up on the chat. If it is an order die, the player chooses one of their units and gives it an order. Place the order die next to the unit to show that it has received the order. Okay, it's pretty similar to bolt action stuff. If a Rift unit receives an order when it has no Rift dice, the player immediately draws one of their Rift dice from the bag and rolls it, and places it with the unit with the result showing face up. If necessary, the player takes the order test to determine if the unit follows the order. Then the unit executes the order. So there's actually an additional step here for bolt action players. When you're doing your whole order thing, where you pull your order, you tell you what you want to do, and you put it down. If it's a Rift Tech unit you're ordering and it doesn't have a Rift dice on it yet, you have to pull your Rift die from the die bag. Now, when you're pulling a random die, if it's a Rift die, the owning player must roll it and then choose one of the Rift units that currently has no Rift dice to assign it to. That's important. So you pull the Rift die. If you pull a Rift die, I'm saying like randomly, if you pull a Rift die, you have to roll it. And when you roll it, regardless if it's the butthole, the eyeball, or nothing, right? Once you roll it, then you pick what unit it gets assigned to. You don't have to pick the unit first and then roll it. So that's kind of cool. You can have lower tier Rift guys, you know? So if you end up with a shitty Rift die roll, you can assign to one of your lesser guys. If all your Rift units already have a Rift die, the player must choose one of the Rift units currently below its maximum number of Rift dice to assign the Rift die to. Note that ordinarily there will be no Rift dice in the dice bag in the first turn. Where there are exceptions, this will be explicitly stated in the unit special rules or specific scenarios. When the sequence is complete, resolve any locked combats, then another dice is drawn blindly from the dice bag and the process is repeated. Once all eligible units have received the order and no dice are left in the dice bag, the order phase ends. The turn end phase, return all order dice to the bag except for those units wishing to remain on ambush or down, as noted later. Each player then picks up all the Rift dice currently assigned to the unit that are exhausted and rolls them. Any dice that are on active or surging results are immediately assigned to Rift unit that are currently have no dice unit, if there are any that exist. Any dice that roll exhaustive results are placed in the dice bag along with the order dice ready for the next turn. It's not what I like, it's exactly what it looks like. It's not me, man. I didn't make that. I didn't draw the design. Of all the designs that put on dice, I would not have gone with this. You know what I mean? That would not have been my choice. I don't know who in their loading like in their loading dock didn't tell them, be like, hey, your new dice look like buttholes, but somebody probably should have told them. Losing Rift and Order dice. Units that are destroyed during the turn lose both. Yeah, that's what it looks like, a plasma sphere. Yeah. Units that are destroyed during the turn lose both their Rift and Order dice. Ooh, okay. If a destroyed unit has already taken its action, remove its Order dice and Rift dice assigned to it from the battlefield. If the number of Rift dice assigned to it is less than the total number maximum, remove the difference from the dice bag. If a destroyed unit has not already been assigned an order, remove the owning player's Order dice from the dice bag. Remove any Rift dice assigned to it from the battlefield. If this is less than the total possible number of Rift dice, remove the difference from the dice bag. Rift and Order dice lost as a result of units being placed destroyed are removed from play and placed aside where both players can see them. Alright, orders look pretty similar. You recap of orders if you played Bolt Action before. You do still have a foobar chart. Troop quality and morale. Okay, this is pretty similar to Bolt Action stuff here. Alright, let's get into the Rift dice. Like the Order dice, Rift dice are color-coded to the owner player's army due to the way each faction uses its Rift dice differently. However, unlike Order dice, Rift units normally deploy with their Rift dice already set to active. Rift dice normally stay with its unit, and it will only be placed into the dice bag if it is exhausted by being used and remains so after it's been rolled at the end of a turn. A Rift dice drawn from the dice bag may be assigned to friendly units as it's already described as page 50. So it sounds like you deploy with your Rift dice, and once it's expended, then you toss it in the bag and you can draw it anew. Sounds interesting. Okay, Rift dice effects. Rift units can have passive and active abilities, sometimes both. Passive. Rift units may be positively or adversely affected by the Rift dice placing with them when it is exhausted or surging, as noted in each unit's army list entry. See the example below. While a unit's Rift dice is active, it functions normally. If a Rift unit has no Rift dice assigned to it, it will operate as if it has an exhausted Rift die. That's a good thing to know. Active. A Rift unit can use its active or surging Rift dice at any time to create a special effect, for example, to enhance a shot from a Rift weapon, or to use a special ability to that unit. If the unit's Rift dice is exhausted, it cannot make use of the active ability. Such abilities are noted in the relevant unit relevant unit entries in the army list, or on the Rift weapons table on page 96. While most active abilities are only inherently useful when a Rift unit is executing an order, they can be used at any time. This is a useful ability such as the Dead Rise. Again. Okay. Seems like a little technical to get into just on the stream. Like I said, you saw something as simple as terrain, how that worked. So, okay, now we have some more terrain rules. Let's read about these. So this should be pretty similar to bolt action. You have impassable terrain. So you have terrain, you have impassable. No unit can move into or move onto or through impassable features. Could be a steep gorge, large body of deep water, or limited fortifications. Note some terrain can be rated as impassable only to certain types of units. For example, an area of anti-tank obstacles could be impassable to vehicles and artillery, but open ground to infantry. Equally, units with the flight special rule could simply just leap over them. Rough ground. These are areas of terrain that are difficult to move through and will usually slow down troops, and in some cases prevent them from moving altogether. Different kinds of troops are affected in different ways, as shown on the terrain chart. Dense woodland, loose ground like deep mud, and areas of ruinous buildings or rubble are all good examples. Obstacle, such as low walls, shallow streams, or thick hedges and ditches, present barriers to movement but can also be of a benefit to an advancing army as they may provide cover. Infantry units are allowed to cross an obstacle whilst executing an advance order or as part of an assault. Hold on. Infantry units are only allowed to cross an obstacle while executing an advance order or as part of an assault. Other kinds of units affect differently as noted on the terrain chart. Roads, you have roads again. Roads make no difference to infantry, but they enable vehicles to move around quickly as noted on the chart. So let's see what it says in the chart, because we're here for the weeds. So what I'm curious about roads is I'm curious to see if it's going to only affect wheeled vehicles, but also affects tracked vehicles. Let's see what we got here. Alright. Infantry. Rough ground obstacles can only cross when moving through an advance order unless part of an assault. Building roads, no effect on movement. Okay. Power armor infantry. Rough ground obstacles building can only cross or move through with an advance order unless it's part of an assault. Okay. Road, no effect on movement. So infantry, rough ground, and obstacle, they can only do an advance order part of an assault. Building / road, no effect on movement. So that's your regular foot slogger. Notice how they can move through a building. Power armor infantry can't. For power armor infantry, rough ground, obstacles, and building all get lumped into one. That's a cool little detail. It's like, imagine like Iron Man kind of getting like stuck in a building rubble, you know, while like Spider-Man kind of like slinks through, you know? Alright. You have for artillery here. Alright, let's cover walkers. So rough ground, no effect on movement, benefit of being a walker. Obstacles, no effect unless it has been designated as anti-tank or anti-walker obstacle, or impassable terrain, in which case it's impassable, okay? Building, cannot enter or move within the kind of terrain. Heavy or super heavy walkers may move through and demolish some buildings in some situations. See the rules for buildings. Nice, that's what I like. Interactive terrain, destroying terrain, that's pretty cool. Road, the unit's move rate is doubled, and if it moves entirely along a road. Okay. Don't know how I feel about that. I feel like roads should really only benefit wheeled vehicles. You know, that's what makes it... That's fine, it's fine. Wheeled vehicles. Cannot be deployed within, enter, or move through this kind of terrain, rough ground, obstacle, or building. Unit's move rate is doubled if it moves entirely along a road. It's weird that walkers also get double movement on a road, but I think they're just really leaning into walker, and it makes sense because it's Konflikt 47, so that's fine. Tracked and half-tracked vehicles. Rough ground can only cross or move An advance order obstacle, no effect unless it's been designated to tank. Building cannot enter. Same rule. Tanks may move through and demolish some buildings. Okay, road, no effect. So a road has no effect on a half-tracked vehicle or a tracked vehicle, but walkers get double movement on roads. Interesting. Interesting thing to think about. Ooh, pretty picture. Shit, look at that. Sure field projector, shield field projector, another one, another one, another one, another one. That's 5 gravity cannons in that one picture alone. Good lord. Alright, shooting. This looks all pretty similar to bolt action. You know, you can fire an inch past friends. Same thing if you look down here, that same icon where you can shoot as long as you clear 1 inch above your own guys. Seems like if you play with elevation, you're really gonna have to like measure ahead of time and really kind of talk things out before you play. Try to see what's different for Konflikt 47 here. There are Super 6s for 9 possible shots. That's pretty cool. Okay, you have the hit modifier table. Firing on the move is a -1, unless of course you have like special stuff. Fire is pinned -1, inexperienced -1, point blank range +2. Okay, this is pretty similar to bolt action stuff here. Damage value table, troops and soft skinned vehicles. Inexperienced troops 3+, regular infantry or artillery 4+, vets 5+, all soft skinned vehicles 6+. Target, armored car or carrier 7+, light tanker walker 8+, medium tanker walker 9+, heavy tanker walker 10+, super heavy tanker walker 11+. Cover saves. Soft cover is a 5+, hard cover is a 4+. Down is a 5+ or +2. Okay, yeah, cover appears, from giving a quick glance where it appears to be just like bolt action 3rd edition. So a lot of the rules are taken from 3rd edition and kind of given a little Konflikt 47 sprinkle. Okay, it's saying, before the game begins, it is important that the players rate the terrain according to the type and decide for themselves what gives soft and hard cover. So, per the book, soft cover describes the type of soft concealing cover that makes the target hard to pick out but does not necessarily offer much in physical protection. This includes woodland, hedgerows, and other vegetation such as leafy undergrowth or crops. Soft cover includes intervening infantry and artillery units, soft-skinned vehicles that are partially obscure to the target, regardless if they are friends or foe, camouflage nets or mesh. Hard cover describes the kind of cover that is real physical protection. Cover is not cumulative. A target benefits from both soft cover and hard cover to use the one that applies to the majority of the unit. If they both apply in equal measure, use the hard cover. It means you can't combine it. You can't be behind hard cover and soft cover, you know? This is a good quote. You got a mud skipper right here, jump walker, and it says, "Monster or not, a 50 cal is a 50 cal. Can't argue with lead." It's a good quote. Alright, I'm back. Sorry, I needed a drink of coffee. Alright. So there's little bits of more, like I said, there's lore sprinkled around, but it's more like point of view telling, which isn't bad. It's kind of an interesting way of doing it, but morale test, ambush fire. A lot of the stuff is very similar from Bolt Action 3rd edition. Here's the thing, Shinobi space. When they talk about that whole 4th dimension and that V dimension for the Germans, the Imperial Japanese are calling it the Shinobi space, which is pretty cool. Late 1944, Japanese scientists made a breakthrough in the realm of Rift energy research. They found empirical evidence that Rift energy originates from a state of existence outside yet parallel to our own. In keeping with the Shintoist beliefs, they came to the term of alternate state of existence, the spirit realm, or Shinobi space, a place just beyond human perception. In utmost secrecy, beyond the prying eyes of the Axis scientific advisors, experiments were conducted in an attempt to exploit this discovery by perfecting methods to phase subjects out of our existence and into this alternate realm. Initial tests were disastrous, I bet. Many subjects did not return. Others were irrevocably changed by their experience. They were useless except for vivisection. Some, however, survived, and the reports ensured the genesis of the Imperial Ghost technology was founded. So that's what Ghost Attack Squads are. With the whole phasing, they actually phase out into that other plane of existence. So apparently the Imperial Japanese figured out Rift Tech, you know, in their way. They figured out that it's not just, you know, who knows where the messages are coming from. It's this, could be the future, could be a time travel. No, they're like, no, this is straight up another, they have empirical evidence, it's just straight up another plane of existence, parallel to our own. So that's kind of cool. Alright, weapons, let's see what we got here. We got rifle, pistol, submachine gun, pretty standard. Automatic rifle, range 30, 2 shots. Assault rifle, range 18, 2 shots assault. Okay, that's pretty similar. Stig 44 Zulu, 18 range, 3 shots assault. Okay, so the Stig 44 Zulu is basically just an upgrade to the assault rifle. Alright, light machine gun, 36-inch range, 4 shots. Shots halved on a mounted vehicle, okay. Flamethrower, infantry, range 6, shots 1, pin +2. Okay. Weapons chart, advanced small arms. That's cool. They don't even call the Stig 44 Zoo advanced. Alright. So Thompson M1X, or Thompson M1X1 or M1X2. You have normal, then you have an E-slug, so like a pulse slug. For the normal profile, it's 12-inch range, 2 shots, +1 pin, assault mode. Assault and mode. E-slug is 6-inch range, 1 shot, +2 pin. I'm not even gonna try and pronounce some of that shit. Alright, you have a Luger and a Schmeiser. The Luger is 6-inch, 1 shot, +1 assault. The Schmeiser is 12-inch range, 2 shots, +1 assault. You have the PTRS 46. Mode A is 18-inch, 1 shot, +2, and you get the mode special rule. Mode B is 6-inch, 2 shots at no pin, and you get assault. Okay, that's pretty cool. So it's kind of like the old school Russian heavy infantry where they had the SMGs and the cut down AT rifles. Seems pretty similar. Alright. You have more Russian weapons. Looks like there's a flamethrower and an assault shot, so you have like that's almost like a combi flamer. Yeah, different types of weapons, pretty cool. Infantry anti-armor weapons. So you have the anti-tank rifle. Thank God the anti-tank rifle made it. I was a little worried, but I'm glad we're getting the classic anti-tank rifle. Range 48. That is a hell of a good range. So 48-inch range, 1 shot, +2 pin. AT rifles are going to be great. AT rifle grenade, 12-inch, 1 shot plus 3 pin shape charge. Piat, still a thing. 12-inch range, 1 shot plus 5 pin shape charge and team. Alright, sorry about that. I had to adjust my mic. Okay. Bazooka. 24-inch range. 1 shot. Plus 5 pin. So it looks like the Bazooka has better range than the Piat. Panzerfaust. RPG 1. ATARD. Priam. So all different... Looks like a single shot disposable. Every army is going to have kind of the same faction. Um, 12-inch range, 1 shot plus 6 pin. Anti-tank launchers and shape charge. Then you have the Panzer Shrek and the Super Bazooka. 24-inch range, 1 shot plus 6 pin. Team and shape charge. Cool. Alright, so about HE weapons. HE weapons, you have rifle grenades, light mortars, medium mortars, heavy mortars, light Howies, medium Howies, heavy Howies, light rocket systems, medium rocket systems, and heavy rocket systems. That's kind of cool. I don't think I've seen that before. Rift weapons. Alright, here we go. Here's the Gucci shit. Heavy Tesla rifle. Charge mode. 18-inch range, 1 shot, plus 1 pin. Tesla art. Pulse mode. That's fucking cool. 6-inch range, 3 shots, plus 1 pin. So that's kind of like a shotgun. You have like a buckshot and slug option. One gives you 18 range, 1 shot plus 1 pin, and it arcs. And one gives you a 6-inch range, but 3 shots. That's kind of cool. I'm liking how they did that. But if you do it pulse, remember you don't get the Tesla arc rule. Tesla light cannon, 30-inch range, 1 shot plus 1 pin. Yee. Tesla cannon, 36-inch range, 1 shot plus 2 pin. M177 dual Tesla cannon. I think that's what's on the linebacker. 48-inch range, 2 shot plus 3 pin. Tesla arc. Radium revolver. Oof. 6-inch range, 1 shot HE and corrosive. Ooh, that's nasty. Meteor launcher. I talked about these for the British tanks. They have like that corrosive payload, kind of like you remember the first G.I. Joe movie when they shoot the Eiffel Tower with those like nanobots. It kind of looks like that. So 60-inch range. Mother of God. 1 shot HE, and you get indirect fire and corrosive. Oh, I see those being pretty damn nasty against walkers. Alright, we have the Shearfield projector, my old favorite, 48-inch range, 2 shot, plus 4 pin, gravity pulse. I'm curious if it's still going to get its rule where the heavier armor does more damage. We'll see if we get into it. This is kind of just the table. A whole bunch of other shit I can't even pronounce. The Spherefield projector, Sonic tank, 24-inch shot, 4 shots plus 2 pin. Nice, shockwave. Okay, the Russian stuff got better. Here we go, the Type 10 Shiburu rifle. 24-inch range, 1 shot plus 1 pin and crush. That's awesome. Okay, not that movie, RK. The first live action movie. Ass. But you are correct. Type 61 light Shiburu cannon, 36-inch range, 2 shot plus 3 pin. Crush. Type 99 Shiburu cannon, 48-inch range, 2 shot plus 4 pin. Crush. Absolutely hell yes. This is going to be awesome. Cobra la 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 la. Alright, weapons chart. Heavy weapon. Medium machine guns, heavy machine guns, light machine guns, they seem pretty similar. Light autocannon, heavy autocannon, I don't see anything different. Light AT gun, medium AT gun, heavy AT gun, super heavy AT gun, 84-inch range, one shot, plus 7 pin, Jesus. Flamethrower, okay, those haven't changed. Conventional weapons are still conventional. Trying to pick out just stuff that's kind of different, you know? Anti-tank launchers are disposable weapons that a unit can fire a limited number of times. For example, the Panzerfaust is a rocket-propelled anti-tank grenade. Oh god, I fucking hate that term. A rocket-propelled anti-tank grenade, otherwise known as a anti-tank rocket, that has been so successful for the Axis that has been copied by all belligerents. So, that's pretty cool. So now every faction has their version of Panzerfaust, and just having captured Panzerfaust. You know, the Imperial Japanese have theirs, the Americans have theirs, like, kind of like, it's that, it literally just looks like a law on the models, like an M72 law, so. If a unit of infantry is equipped with anti-tank launchers, then one model in the unit, per order issued, is allowed to fire an anti-tank launcher in place of its usual weapon. Ooh, wow. If the owning player desires, the unit can opt to fire off all of its anti-tank launchers in the same turn, keeping none back for use in later turns. In this case, roll a d6 to determine how many models can use anti-tank launchers this turn and mark the unit as out of ammo for its anti-tank launchers. If the number of rolls exceed the number of models in the unit, reduce the result accordingly. Roll to determine the number of shots before declaring a target for the firing unit. This could be 2 different target units if taking advantage of the high penetration weapon roll. Interesting. So you can literally go do a go for broke and fire off all of your Laws and Panzerfaust all at once. That's kind of cool. Interesting tactic there. This talks about fixed weapons. Flamethrowers allow no cover saves. Flamethrowers always hit top armor for vehicles. Any unit hit by a flamer takes 1 pin marker because it's been hit, and a further D3 and pin markers account for the unbridled terror unleashed by being set on fire. Oh! Any unit firing a flamethrower, whether infantry or vehicle, also receives 1 pin marker, whether they hit or miss the target. This represents the danger and confusion of utilizing these weapons. That's interesting. Alright, there are a lot of rules for flamethrowers. Definitely worth taking a look into. HE templates, 1 inch is plus 1 pin, D2 markers. HE 2 inch is plus 2 pin, 3 inches plus 3, 4 is plus 4. I like the way that works, kind of makes sense. Yeah. I must say, I don't think I ever used the flamethrower in bolt action 3rd edition, so it's kind of new to me. Alright, spotters. Note, however, the spotter can only spot for a single indirect fire weapon per game turn. Okay, so still keeping that rule going, which is good. Indirect fire, same thing about ranging in and zeroed in. Okay, mode, we saw this for Konflikt 47. Mode. Mode weapons can select between different weapon profiles when the unit shoots and fights at close quarters. Each model, that's a cool thing. Heads up there. Each model can freely switch between their weapon profiles. For example, firing with one profile when executing an order, but switching to another when attacked in close quarters later in the turn. That's huge. Note that individual models within a unit equipped with mode weapons can select different profiles if desired. That is kind of cool. So when you're talking about, you know, some of that Tesla stuff, you know, you remember we had like the 6-inch shot and it did 3 shots. Otherwise, it had 18-inch 1 shot with Tesla Arc. If you have like 5 guys, you can cut it half and half. That's pretty cool. and then you can shoot during your shooting phase in one, and then later when you're doing Overwatch or you're getting assaulted, you can kick it into rock and roll mode and do something else. That's really cool. That's a cool rule to read. That's what we're kind of doing. So I'm going over the full book. I'm not reading everything. I'm kind of just picking stuff here and there and kind of talking about it. Stuff that's unique to Konflikt 47 or, you know, Rift Tech stuff. Rift Tech weapons have a basic weapon profile that can always be used. However, a Rift weapon attack can be enhanced by exhausting one of the unit's active Rift dice to trigger a special Rift ability. The specific ability for each weapon is indicated by the special rule column. If the unit has a surging Rift dice, some weapons can be overloaded for an even more potent effect charge. Note that Rift dice must be exhausted before any rolls are made. Rift weapons don't rely on kinetic energy to penetrate an enemy's armor, so their pin is not modified by range. Huge. Little thing right down here that people would look over real quick. This is massive. Rift weapons do not rely on kinetic energy to penetrate a target's armor. So therefore, Rift Tech weapons, their pin is not modified by range. That, ladies and gentlemen, is absolutely awesome, especially for the Empire of Japan. So with those badass little rifles we have, our compression rifles, we can sit there and shoot at long range, you know, and play Billy Badass and try and plink through some armor. That's pretty cool. That's huge. So here's some Rift weapon abilities. Let's read these off. Rift weapon ability, Corrosive, or DX. When executing a fire or advance order, including when resolving an ambush, a unit with corrosive weapons can opt to exhaust their Rift dice to increase the pin of its corrosive weapons against the targets by the die type indicated. Rift weapon ability, Crush, for you badass Imperial Japanese out there. When executing a fire or advance order, a unit with Crush weaponry can opt to exhaust Rift dice to generate a Crush effect. Crush weapons that roll with all of their shots automatically inflict one additional hit on the target at the same pin with no to-hit roll required. If a vehicle model is hit by all of the shots from a Crush weapon, add the pin values together, including the bonus hit. Fuck. And roll for damage as a single hit with that pin modifier. So that is still going to be on where you aim on the vehicle, which is important. So if you're shooting it in the front, you're not going to get top armor effect. But man, that is huge. That is way better than the old compression wave. Oh, yeah, baby. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Alright, Rift weapon ability, Gravity Pulse. A unit with Gravity Pulse weapons can opt to exist Rift dice to generate a Gravity Pulse effect. This uses the 3-inch diameter template. Place the template anywhere within range and line of sight of the projector. Note, line of fire is not needed. I say again, this is super important. A unit with Gravity Pulse weapon can opt to exhaust its Rift dice to generate a Gravity Pulse effect. This uses the 3-inch diameter template. Place the template anywhere within range and line of sight of the projector. Note, line of fire is not needed. Then roll to hit each model underneath it and the number of shots indicated for the weapon. If the vehicle model is indicated for the weapon, the vehicle model is hit by multiple shots from the Gravity Pulse. Add the pin values together and roll for damage as a single hit of that pin modifier. So yeah, it seems like Rift weapons are super dangerous for vehicles and stuff like that. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out, Ginny. I'm trying to figure out how that reads. So I could just be shit at reading, which is highly possible. Let me give it a third shot here. Place the template anywhere within range and line of sight of the projector. Note, a line of fire is not needed. Okay, no, so I don't think you can't just put it on the other side of dense terrain or anything like that. You still have to be able to see your target, I guess. I'll look at exactly what line of fire is and see where that's a little bit different. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. You don't count your own guys. That's what I was thinking it might be. You don't have to worry about an actual line of fire, just line of sight. Okay, hypervelocity. A unit with hypervelocity weapons can opt to exhaust a rift dice and generate a hypervelocity shot. Hypervelocity shot gets an additional +1 to its hit modifier and +1 to pin. Hypervelocity shots ignore cover saves. When a hypervelocity shot scores full damage on a vehicle, the damage is always counted as massive damage instead if the total pin value would normally be inefficient to do so. Not bad. Shockwave. During a shockwave event, the weapon will combine its shots to generate a blast effect. Roll to hit is normal, then count up the number of shots that hit. The number of hits scored is the HE equivalent of the weapon. For example, a ZP has 4 shots. If it employed a shockwave event, then rolled 3 hits, it would generate a 3-inch HE explosion. Ho, man. To be fair, it seems like every nation is getting some badass riff weapons. I don't know how balanced they are, but they all read really cool. Alright, a Tesla arc. Each Tesla arc acts as an additional shot made by the weapon. For example, an M17 Tesla cannon shoots 1 and Tesla arc 3, so when employing the Tesla arc, it becomes 4 shots. Okay. Alright, so what else we got? Close quarters. Alright, CQB. Let's see what we got going on here. Declare target, measure move distance, target reacts, move assaulting model, fight first round of close quarter combat, attackers roll to damage, defender takes casualties, defenders roll to damage, attackers take casualties, loser is destroyed, resolve draws, further rounds of close combat, the winner regroups. Okay. Alright, let's read some of the unique stuff for CQB here. Target reacts. If the assault is determined to be successful, and the target unit has not already been assigned an order die at that turn, the target unit can react by opening fire against the assaulters. The opposing player takes the order dice from the dice bag and instructs their unit to fire. However, no order test is needed, even if the unit has pin markers. Sometimes this reaction fire may be enough to wipe the assaulters out before they even reach their target. Note that this reaction fire is resolved immediately before any assaulting models are moved. However, even weapons that are out of range count as being in range and can shoot. This represents the fire waiting for the assaulting unit to be within range. Interesting. Also remember, if you have a mode weapon, you can swap the modes on it. Alright, we have ambush charge, which is pretty cool. Assaulting a unit in ambush and resolving ambush charges. Infantry units that are in ambush can interrupt any move made by any enemy unit within 6. Oh yeah, baby. That's awesome. The ambushers do not need to be able to trace a line of sight to the target unit at that point. A simple 6-inch proximity is enough. That's awesome. That means you can wait around the corner, and when they come around the corner, you can jump them. That's perfect. The player whose units are in ambush declares, because that gets mentioned a lot as far as like charging, you have to have line of sight to charge. This is pretty cool. And charging from ambush, you don't need it, you just need proximity. That's cool to hear. The player whose units are in ambush declares that when they want their unit to charge, the target's unit's move is interrupted and the player's position accordingly. The ambushing player flips the unit's ambush order to run and moves the models up to their 6 inches to make contact. This counts as a surprise charge, so the target cannot react. That's cool. The target unit move is halted. Any further movement of this action will be limited. Ambushing a unit or assaulting a unit in ambush. If a unit is in ambush is assaulted, it can react by shooting at the attackers even if they are less than 6 inches away, or by charging into the assault and engaging the attacker enemies up to 6 inches away from the ambushing unit's starting position. If it charges the assaulting unit, any defensive position bonuses are lost. So that's kind of cool. If you're in ambush and someone decides to assault you, you can assault and meet them like midway. That's pretty neat. So yeah, you have surprise charges. If the assaulting unit is 6 inches or less from the target when the assaulter is declared, then the target cannot react. The enemy is just too close, and there's not enough time to bring your weapons to bear. Flanked. Any weapon that has a fixed firing arc can only respond with reaction fire if the assaulting unit is within the firing arc. That makes sense. Okay, assaulting defended obstacles. Let's see how this works. Okay, assaulting defended obstacles. If, when measured, the distance between the closest assaulting model and the closest visible model in the target unit, the line is clear of all terrain except for the obstacle, the target model is behind the obstacle. Okay, cool, whatever. The combat is then resolved across the obstacle as normal, but the defenders will benefit from defensive position bonus, explained below. So let's see what that is. Defensive position. Whenever the assault of the enemy has gone across the obstacle or rough ground, or when the defender is being fought across obstacles as already described, the defender has the advantage of averting themselves from the onslaught and can place a few blows of their own as the enemy makes their way across the terrain. In this case, the defender fights first. Rolling to damage as above, the attacker removes casualties as above, and then rolls to damage, but only with any surviving models. Finally, the defender removes casualties as normal, and the winner shown above. Note, however, the defenders... here we go. They fixed it. I think they fixed it. Let's see what this says. Note, however, that defenders that are down when they are assaulted cannot benefit from the defensive position bonus. The fight is resolved simultaneously as normal. Hell yes, vindication. Yes, note the date, note the time. It's the exact shit I brought up in Bolt Action 3rd Edition. This is what I'm talking about. This is what I was hoping. I was hoping they would fix this. I'm hoping that this gets fixed in Bolt Action 3rd Edition. This is exactly what I was talking about. If you want to fight from behind cover, that's fine. But if you go down, if you issue a down order, you should not be able to swing first. Absolutely, that never made any sense, because that goes against the entire tactical doctrine of find, fix, flank, and finish, which was solidified by paratroopers in World War II. That's the entire point. Find the enemy, suppress the fight and tech zaggy out of them, swing them around the side, and charge through. I don't think that last part, I'll have to look when I'm not as tired. I don't think that last part is in 3rd Edition Bolt Action. That special caveat of when the defenders are down and they are assaulted, they do not benefit from the defensive position. So they do not get to swing first. They can swing same time, which is fine. I'm okay with that. We can swing same time. Totally cool. Because that means you literally suppress the target who's behind cover and then you rush them. It's like the entire series of Gears of War. You know, you suppress the target and then you run in and chainsaw them down. That's how this has always worked. You know what I mean? Same thing like Napoleonic tactics. You shoot them and then you charge in and bayonet the shit out of them. You know? So I am super glad they put it in there. Maybe that is in Bolt Action. I'll have to go find it. I trust RK. I really do. He knows his shit. He's a good lad. Good guy. But I don't think that's in Bolt Action 3rd Edition. If it is, hey, that's cool too. But I think it's worded a little bit different. But I like how, because I knew they would have to focus on CQB for Conflict 47 only because you have Shrek Wolfen, Ursus infantry, zombies. There's a lot of focus on melee combat, much more than you would in bolt action. So I'm glad that they altered that. Maybe I wasn't the only person saying that. That's really cool. I was a little worried when I saw defensive position, that's why I wanted to read it. I'm super happy for that rule. Page 89. Happiness. Yeah, everything else seems pretty similar to bolt action. Good art. Oh yeah, here's some Imperial Japanese right here. You can see the Locust medium battle mech and plenty of troops. Oh yeah. Alright, now we're getting into list building. Headquarters, HQ units, officers. Platoon commanders give a +2 morale bonus, 2 extra orders, range 6. Company commanders, +4 morale, 4 extra orders, 12-inch range. You still have Snap 2. Alright, medics and riff units. So medics. A medic team consists of a field medic and can include assistants such as orderlies or aid and litter teams or stretcher bearers. Hold on, see what the arcade says. Page 110, close combat. It is separate from the actual fighting over an obstacle section, but they specifically say if they are down, they don't benefit from. Nice. Hey, RK, I'm glad you caught that. Thank you. I appreciate that. I didn't think that was in Bolt Action 3rd Edition, but you clearly found it. Thank you. Either way, it still makes me feel better. Nice. I'm glad they specifically state that. All right. That makes so much more sense. Medics, the stretch bearers. If friendly infantry or artillery units within 6 of a medic, including the medic unit itself, must be the units, multiple people, suffers damage from weapons without a pin value. That's important, without a pin value. So AT rifle is still blowing off arms and legs and shit like that. The Thompson M1X1, oh god. Double vindication in one night. Yeah, so I'm one of those people where I don't like, oh, I'm completely right, you can't prove me wrong. If I'm wrong, I'm like, ah, shit, I was wrong totally. It's awesome. I don't mind being wrong at all. That's how I learn. Alright, sorry, back to the medic. I like this. Without a pin value. So, suffers damage from weapons without a pin value. Roll a d6 for each point of damage caused. On a 6, that damage is ignored and does not cause a casualty. Note a medic cannot be used against damage suffered in close quarters combat. Yeah, if you're getting beat down with an E-tool, he ain't gonna help you. Rift units. Medics may not be used to assist rift units and their models and power armored against injury. Their equipment is too intrinsically volatile, or their metabolism is too altered for standard medicine to be able to help. For artillery observers, appear kind of normal. Yeah, just about any rift. Yeah, you get blown apart with some kind of weird rift tech weapon, or like I said, it seems like so far my prediction about AT rifles and your 20 millimeters, you know, your AA guns are gonna prove wildly useful. There's Flak. Hey, what's going on, Francois? We're just looking over the Conflict 47 book, picking out a few rules here and there, talking about it. Airstrike chart, warplane type. That's kind of cool. Nothing too different. Everything seems pretty. Yeah, that seems pretty similar so far. All right, heroes. Another piece of Imperial Japanese lore. The three sacred treasures. The three sacred treasures are the Imperial regalia of Japan. They consist of the sword, the mirror, and the jewel. Legend has it they were brought to Japan by the grandson of the sun goddess, as symbols of the emperor's divinity. Official reports indicate that on the day the bombs fell in Dresden, each of the treasures responded in some fashion. The sword flashed with lightning, the jewel grew warm to the touch, and strange voices issued forth from the mirror. Some contend that these are miraculous blessings, others say they are a warning. Interesting. Alright, so hero. Hero models are units with extraordinary capabilities. In most cases, hero units are also HQ units. If they're outside the usual officer ranks, elite units can sometimes be rated as hero units too and use the following rules. There are 3 model stats specifically for heroes: Guts, Rift to Mastery, and Luck. Guts represents a hero's dogged determination to see things through no matter what. Gut points can be used in 3 different ways. You can expend a point of Guts, allowing any single dice roll made by or against the hero to roll a hit to damage, sorry, it's phrased weird. I'm reading it weird, it's phrased perfectly fine. Expending a point of Gut allows any single dice roll made by or against the hero to be modified by +1 or -1 after it has already been rolled. Multiple Guts points can be used to extend to modify the dice, but at most it can go is up to 6 or down to 1. That's pretty cool. Gut seems pretty cool so far. A point of Guts can also be expended to return an order dice to the bag, freeing up a unit to activate again. Ooh. A hero must be within 6 of that unit to return its order dice back to the bag. A hero can always return their own order dice back to the bag by expending a point of Guts. Note that a platoon or company commander is still limited to using their Snap 2 action ability once per game turn, even if activated with Guts. Nice, I like how they put that in there. That was definitely play tested. So you can't just, do a Snap 2 order for your platoon commander and then return his dice back into the bag and make him do a Snap 2 again. No, you can only do 1 Snap 2 per game turn. I like that. That, you can definitely tell they play tested that one. Finally, there's always a chance a hero model will remain with Guts points will simply refuse to die when called upon to do so. When a hero model is removed as a casualty, roll a d6 and add the hero's remaining Guts points to the score. If the total is 7+, the hero model remains in play and loses the points of Guts instead. That's kind of neat. Alright, Rift Mastery. Rift Mastery may represent the attunements the hero models to the ever-present Rift energy in the world, and their Rift ability to manipulate it or resist the effects. Rift Mastery points grant a hero extra Rift dice, in addition to the ones it would normally have for active Rift enhancements. In effect, the hero has their own personal store of Rift energy to use and will often have personalized active Rift enhancements. That almost sounds like a damn Psyker. That's pretty cool. At the start of the game, place 1 additional Rift dice with the hero model for each point of Rift Mastery it has. The hero can use any other Rift dice for themselves as required. They follow these Rift dice rules. When executing an order, the hero can allocate 1 of their Rift dice to the Rift unit within 6. Oh, that's cool. A maximum of 1 die can be allocated to a unit. Take the Rift die from the hero and place it with the unit. This may be a Surging Rift dice. Deduct 1 from the hero's Rift Mastery points. The allocated Rift die now belongs to the unit it was allocated from. Okay. Anytime the hero can combine 2 of the active Rift dice to create 1 Surging die, if desired. But one of the Rift dice used is lost. Deduct 1 from the hero's with mastery points. Dude, that straight up sounds like Yuri from like Red Alert Yuri's Revenge. It just straight up sounds like Yuri, and that's awesome. Sorry about that. I take another sip of what's now is cold coffee. Alright. Luck. In a world war, luck is what keeps people alive. A really good quote. I think it's from one of the Gaunt's ghost books. Probably Guns of Tanith, if I had to bet. It's, Lady Luck is a soldier's best friend, but she's fickle and hates being asked favors. Love that quote. Anyways. In a world war, luck is what keeps people alive. Whether it's simply gaining a fortunate outcome or evading a brush with death, luck always wins out in the end. So, 1. Expending a point of luck allows a dice to be re-rolled. Each point of luck re-rolls 1 die, and the same die can potentially be re-rolled multiple times. I don't know how I feel about multiple re-rolls. Eek. But it'll always cost 1 point of luck in each attempt. Okay, that's a little better. This is the only time in which a re-roll can ever be re-rolled. At least they state that. Note that luck can be applied to influence any kind of die roll. Shooting, cover saves, reserve roll, morale checks, etc. And the hero doesn't have to be the one making the roll. Their sheer presence in the battle is somehow enough to tip the odds. Okay, holy shit, that's massively huge. Okay, so let me reread that to make sure I'm not an asshole here. So expending a point of luck allows the die to be re-rolled. Each point of luck re-rolls 1 die. The same die can potentially be re-rolled multiple times in this way, but will always cost 1 point of luck each attempt. This is the only time in which a re-roll can never be re-rolled. Note that luck can be applied to influence any kind of die roll. Shooting, cover saves, reserve roll, morale check, etc. And the hero doesn't have to be the one making the roll. Their sheer presence in the battle is somehow enough to tip the odds. Okay, so I read that twice. It sounds like it doesn't have to be your die either. Right? So it seems like, and it says any die roll. And it says a die. So it sounds like this affects rift dice and any other die. So any kind of die. Could be rift dice or regular dice. That's huge. It doesn't have to be your die. It seems like you can manipulate the enemy's dice. So this is like playing with like a blue counterspell deck in Magic, right? This sounds fun as hell. You can affect anyone's die roll, and there is no range. That's the best part. You don't have to be within 6 inches or 18 inches or have line of sight. You can really do some warp fuckery with this. This is gonna be cool. Alright, I think that might be my favorite, other than the Imperial Japanese Rifles. This might be my favorite thing for Comic 47, is the luck die. You could do some serious stuff with the luck die. I read it twice to make sure I wasn't crazy. I mean, I am crazy. Put me in a room once, drove me crazy. I was crazy once. Anyways, it says any die. Does not specify rift dice or regular die. Now, you don't roll order dice, so you can't fuck with order dice, sadly. But you can't fuck with any other dice. And it's battle space wide, too. That's a lot of fun. I'm excited for that. I'm really hoping, and I gotta finish looking through the book. I know we're kind of running out of time here. But I want to see if there's an Imperial Japanese unit with the luck rule. Because that'll absolutely be the hero I take. I want as much luck as I can get. Oh, that's going to be fun. Okay, let me read what else luck can do. Alright. If a hero model is to be removed as a casualty, any luck point, it instead experiences a miraculous or villainous last-second reprieve. Deduct 1 point of luck from the hero and leave it in play. Nice. If your hero has both guts and luck remaining, the player can choose which one to use. Oh yeah, luck. Luck. That is going to be sexy. Alright, different types of power armor. You have the glorious Imperial Japanese correct and the only option assault frame. You have the British Galahad, you have the US Heavy Infantry, the Axis Straw Troopin, and you have the Soviet Guard armor. All clearly inferior to the Imperial Japanese armor. Alright, heavy platoon armor comprises an advanced breastplate, blah 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 blah. Augmented armor represents a further stage of development, fully enclosed in a tank-like armor plate and augmented to carry even heavier weaponry, even lightweight artillery in the case of straw trooper. Okay, so you have heavy power armor, then you have augmented armor, which is basically like a walking tank. Power armor type, grade 1 is heavy, you get +1 damage value increase. Grade 2 augmented +2. Power armor troop damage value summary and experienced, they get 4+ in grade 1, 5+ in grade 2. Regular 5+ in grade 1, 6+ in grade 2, you know, augmented armor. Veterans 6+, and Jesus, 7. Veterans and augmented armor is a 7+. Ooh, man, those are going to be hard to kill. That is like a walking tank, or walking armored car. Unit special rules. Augmented. Augmentation allows certain units to wield heavy weapons as easily as infantry weapons. Augmented units ignore the fixed or team weapon special rule. Fanatic is still Fanatic. Trying to see what else is that. Deadly, fast, flight. Fieldcraft, green, heavy, horror. Alright, let's try and hit the ones that are conflict force related. So deadly. Some combatants are extremely formidable at close quarters battle due to a variety of enhancements. Deadly models roll X number of dice to indicate their brackets of damage. For example, Deadly 2 models would roll 2 dice each in close quarters combat. If the unit of Deadly wins an assault and scores damage against an armored vehicle, determine the damage with a pin value of +1. Ooh, that's really cool. Deadly units can also benefit from the rule for being equipped with assault weapons to gain an additional dice. Fuck! Ooh, that's bad. Deadly is dangerous. Well, deadly is deadly, pun intended. Sean, what do you mean I spent months trash talking guy who's playing by the rules? I'm not sure what you're talking about. If you're talking about the Berlin thing, he was saying a destroyed vehicle counted as infinite height line of sight blocking, and that's not the same as dense terrain. I see what you're doing there, sir. Yeah, no, that was different. So again, we understand the rules for dense terrain, that's fine, but he was saying all sorts of stuff counted as infinite high. So it was a wrecked, what is that German boat tank thing? I think Jenny painted one. It was one of those, and it was infinitely high and blocking line of sight, but he was able to put troops on the 3rd story of a ruin somehow, and he was able to see over it. Yeah, it was a very rules for thee but not for me kind of thing. That's why we hated that guy. Yeah. The racism. Gotcha. Well, you supported no evidence. I can't refute something of which you proved no evidence. The burden is on the accuser, sir, not on the defender. Alright, fast. On the battlefield, Common Force 7, the ability to outpace ordinary infantry is often key. A unit with fast moves 8 with an advance order and 16 with a run order. Ooh, that is really nice. Fearless. Units that have the Fearless special rule will never accept defeat as close quarters combat. If a Fearless unit is defeated in close quarters and still have the models remaining, treated as a draw instead, and another round is immediately fought. Yeah. Thank you, RK. Yeah, that's what he got wrong. He had spotters in the 3rd floor of ruins, where there was no window, but he's in ruins, so he could see out of everything. And then yeah, his wrecked vehicle counted as infinitely high line of sight blocking. Fucking weird. They are absolutely clankers. Look, I'm from the creek, alright? I was at the creek, so I do call them clankers. I will stress that R. I don't give a shit. Alright. Flight. Let's see. What do we got here? When using flight, models move up to 12 on an advance order and 18 on a run order, ignoring all terrain while moving, including obstacles, unless they're specifically configured to counter flight. That's cool. You can have obstacles to counter flight. So imagine like power lines or shit like that, or like nets. Hey, Big Buff Ladies, what's going on, Mike? We're looking over and reading through the Konflikt 47 book. Flight units have a special rule for entering and exiting buildings. In the case of buildings with a flat roof, flight units can move directly onto it from any direction. That's cool. Flight units moving onto the table from reserves orders can deploy directly to any point on the tabletop by dropping from above. Flight unit may not move any further as part of the same order. The arrival location must be open ground, and the arriving model may not be placed with one from the units. I'm curious if they're subject to flak. That is a good, that's a good supplement, HS. I gotta get my hands on that supplement again. That's a good one. Sure, I can find the PDF for it. Okay, hard to kill. Some rift enhanced biology and exotic technologies can render a target hard to kill. The practical reality is they can survive devastating hits. Hard to kill units add +2 to the roll for cover saves and receive a 5+ hard to kill save against damage when in open or in close quarters. Hard to kill units gain no additional bonus to cover saves for being on down orders, but they do still benefit from the 50% reduction to HE hits against them. I don't see anything for the +2 pinned weapons. That's unfortunate. The horror rule, I spell HORROR. Enemy units must pass a morale check in order to react by shooting at an assaulting unit that has the horror special rule. That's it. Now it doesn't affect morale or anything else. It just affects reaction if you get charged. Alright. No, these are all both action rules. Artillery. recrewing guns. This is all bolt action stuff. Walkers in sight. What a walker can see is determined from the top of the walker model, ignoring any aerials, pennants, or crew, and the like, to fit their higher point of view and the ability to stretch their legs upward. A walker's line of fire is still determined by sighting down the weapon's barrels as normal. So line of sight and line of fire, so that's different. Line of fire is where the weapon can point. So what it's saying is your line of sight and your line of fire can be two separate things. That's kind of cool. Vehicle orders, very similar. Nothing, no weird conflicts and stuff yet. Firing arcs, arm-mounted weapons. Some walkers feature articulated arm mountings for weaponry. Weapons and arm mounts have a forward-facing arc plus the side arc for whichever side they are mounted. The flexibility of the arm mount means they also have the flak special rule. Huge. Glad I read that. I'll read it again. Arm-mounted weapons. Some walkers feature articulated arm mountings for weaponry. Weapons in the arm mounts have a forward-facing arc, so they can face forward, and they also have the side-facing arc for whichever side, left or right, that they're on. And due to the flexibility of arm mounts, they can also have the flak special rule. That's absolutely huge. So I imagine, I want to see how flak deals with flight. I think that's going to be huge. I want to see how flak deals with flight units, because when you get jumped by fireflies or falcons or knockjagers, maybe you can literally just like point your arm things up and literally just slice them out of the air with gunfire. That would be awesome. Walkers on down orders are able to take advantage of available cover better than any traditional wheeled or tracked vehicle. Makes sense, they can kind of like lower down to the ground. Although still not as well as infantry or artillery. When down orders, walkers gain +1 to the cover save, or a cover save of 6 if they are in the open. That's not bad. Alright, we get into a little bit left. We're going to kind of jump through the rules. I know, we're kind of jumping through the rules. I want to get to the actual armies and models. We discussed a lot of different kind of rules. We discussed a lot of the difference. There's still more. You got to learn more about the walkers. Buildings, ruins versus intact buildings. Okay, before the start of the game, players determine what structure are ruins and which are intact buildings. If determined to be a ruin, it is treated as an area of dense terrain and rough ground, normally providing hard cover. So there you go. Ruins. Ruins are determined to be an area of dense terrain. So ruins are infinitely high for line of sight purposes. Do with that, that's per book, so do with that as you see fit. So you could have one ruin of a building, like a bunkhouse, and that could that could block a line of sight from an air control tower, you know, or a hill across the way. That's hysterical. All right. Ginny, it also says, it specifically says when determining line of sight, don't use any aerials, pennants, or crew or anything like that for your walkers. What's going on, Squid Fist? That's what I wanted to check. I wanted to check how ruins and buildings worked. Alright, let's get to, oh, there's all sorts of good rules for buildings and bunkers. Okay, cool. There's cool rules for buildings and bunkers and assaulting. That's good to see. Let's get to the units. Ah, here we go. A big question. Deciding the size of the game. For practical purposes, we recommend 1,500 points per side. Alright. And they recommend game table in the Lord size, 4x6. Uh, 4x4 if playing 1,000 points or less. So they don't recommend 1,250. They say you should go all the way up to 1,500 for a good game. I can tell you right now, 1,500 point game, that's like 3 hours at the very least. Alright, different battle scenarios. Let's spend our last 30 minutes talking about some of the units. Alright, force selection. Incorporating bolt action unit comfort sim shares many similarities with bolt action. As such, both players agree they can incorporate units from various bolt action supplements. Know that there are some key differences between the two games. Where bolt action units have weapons or special rules that also present in Common 47, the Common 47 rules should be used. Incorporating bolt action units into Common 47 may lead to some unforeseeable interactions. If such an eventuality occurs, the player should use their best judgment to resolve the outcome. Fair enough. Platoon selectors. Core platoon selectors is the assault platoon, the heavy weapons platoon, the engineer platoon, the artillery platoon, the armored platoon, the armored walker platoon, and the reconnaissance infantry platoon. Force structure. Looks like the base unit is now the assault platoon, and then you can take additional ones. Alright. Company commander. Heroes. A single hero may be attached to each platoon. RK was correct. You can take one hero per platoon. Alright, an assault platoon is a platoon commander and 2 specialist or advanced infantry squads, any mix. And then you could take up to 2 specialists or advanced or basic infantry squads, medic, forward observer, sniper team, anti-tank team, light mortars, transport. Okay. Heavy weapons, pretty similar. Artillery platoon, same. Engineer, platoon commander, and 2 basic or advanced infantry squads. Must have the engineer special rule. Armored, 1 platoon command vehicle and 1 vehicle. Armored walker platoon, 1 armored walker. Wow. Okay, that's fucking huge. Alright. An armored walker platoon is just 1 armored walker. You don't have to have 2. So, that makes your, yeah, it makes all your K-47 starter boxes still good. Yeah, 1 armored walker must be a platoon command walker if any optional units are chosen. Reconnaissance infantry platoon, 1 platoon commander and 1 basic or advanced infantry squad. This platoon must include enough transport vehicles or tows to transport all models of infantry. Units with fast or flight special rules are an exception to this. That's cool. So if you have a model with fast or flight like Shrek Wolfen or Fireflies, they don't have to have a transport vehicle to be part of the reconnaissance platoon. Yep, for the armored walker platoon, yeah, you just need 1 walker. But that's not the minimum buying, Jenny, unfortunately. Again, what I don't like is you can only unlock an armored walker platoon by taking an assault platoon. In an assault platoon, you have to take specialized or advanced infantry, so just riff stuff. So you can't get away with just bolt action and adding in rift tech units like you used to in old school Konflikt 47. Now you have to have rift tech units, and then you can add some bolt action units if you want. It's kind of backwards from what it used to be. So minimum is 2 rift infantry squads. That's the minimum. Different types of weapons. Kind of talking about them, talking all the different factions. It's kind of cool. Corrosive weapons, railguns, Tesla weapons, Surefield weapons, Zukov, Shiburu. Yeah, it's kind of like what Warhammer 40K did, where they like changed names. Like, it's not Imperial Guard, it's Astra Militarum. They're not Stormtroopers or Military Tempest. They've kind of like copyrighted all the names. Like, it's not a railgun, it's a, you know, whatever the fuck. Or it's not a compression cannon, it's a Shiburu. A nice rule summary, that's pretty nice. Oh. Oh no. Oh, fuck me. I thought it'd actually have like all the models, kind of like how the bolt action rulebook does, but it does not. Unless I flipped through, which I'm pretty sure I didn't. Oh, that's even more upsetting. I thought the book was getting a little skinny. I was like, uh-oh. So yeah, the world of Konflikt 47, basic supplies, convention of war, units, the turn, orders, rift dice, movement, shooting, weapons, close combat, headquarters, heroes, power armor, unit special rules, artillery, vehicles, buildings, arranging game of Konflikt 47, the battle scenario, story scenarios, force selection, and then it just goes to weapon manuals and rule summary, and it's done. That's really upsetting. So it's pretty light on the lore. That one lore page is wildly confusing. And then it didn't include basic units for all the factions. I know it sounds like I'm bitching and whinging and mooning, and Sean's pointed out, which again, I always appreciate that. Me and Sean are kind of straight shooters with each other, which I always appreciate. I'm not trying to bitch with pens or moan, but even the Konflikt 47 books included like armies. You know what I mean? Like, that's really weird. I don't know. I don't like that. I mean, yeah, you're like, oh, you can just use the app or you can download it from the website. I don't like tabletop war games having a terminally online, you know, support component. You know, I understand, you know, FAQs need to be done every 6 months. I get that, right? I'm not saying it needs to be set in stone. But, you know, the rulebook is not cheap, right? It's got a price to it. So the fact that you paid for the rulebook and it doesn't have any units in it, that's weird. That's not very Warlord Games-ish. Not for Bolt Action or the Konflikt 47. I know what you're going to say, you're like, oh, you can look them up online for free, and that, you probably can, right? And I have the app. I have the Warlord app, so I can make my army list. But the fact that it's not in the book, I don't like that. I did not expect that. I thought, like, when I was reading it earlier time where it said, like, force selection and units and stuff like that, I thought it'd actually have all the stuff in there for the different armies. Yeah, that's not cool. Because usually it has like a little bit of lore. Now, I know what they're going to do. They're like, oh, they'll release, you know, like armies for each faction, which is fine, because that means the Imperial Japanese are going to get hosed like we are. We're going to be last, which is fine. But I was really excited because I thought in this book I would at least get a list of Imperial Japanese units. I can literally like make a list. That's so cool. But I don't. That's really, really, I'm not gonna lie, that's really kind of disappointing at the end. And I get that. So, Sean, I get that. It's just like, okay, I do like how Warhammer 40k does it, where even in the codex, they'll give you the lore of the units, but they won't give you the points value. I'm okay if they didn't give you the points value, because the points value can change. That's fine. But just a breakdown of the units in each army. Because I'm sitting here, think about it. Think about the book. I'm reading. I'm like, oh, the luck is really cool. I wonder what unit has luck. Oh, it's not in this book. I have to go look somewhere else. So I just bought this book. I just bought the dice. I'm super excited. And that's still not enough. Now I gotta go access some website or look somewhere else to figure out what units I could bring from the Imperial Japanese. They have pages and pages in here of like beautiful art or a really confusing lore timeline that makes no sense and reads like a manga. I will say they do a good job of going over the rules. The rules are phenomenal. They do a great job of going over the rules. But not to have a minimum army list like every other book, you know, just like Bolt Action 3rd edition book did, just like all the Konflikt 47 books did, like, that's insane. That is weird. But I think you're right, Sean. I think I'm just old. I think they're just getting with the times and they're going for more of an online thing. The PDF list prevents your books from being invalidated. And you're not wrong, but like I said, if you don't put points in there, it won't be invalidated. I don't know. I think you if you're releasing a book, right, for the price of a rule book, it should have honestly, I'm going to be honest, the Bolt Action 3rd edition rulebook is great. And the problem is it wouldn't be invalidated if they didn't just change it every 6 months. Or like every month. I think changing it once a year is fine. You know, releasing supplements, that's fine, because I don't mind buying another book if there's stuff in the book. Like if I buy another book, it's going to have more missions, more rules. That's kind of cool. It has more art, more fluff. You got to put work into it. I get that. And I'm seeing both sides of it, okay? You bring up a good point, and so does Sean, and I get that. But as the purchaser, I feel like I'm getting shafted. And what I mean by that is I feel like, oh, we'll just put that in the PDF. You know what? It's just like a video game where you like pre-order a game that isn't released in physical copy. That doesn't make any sense. It's not gonna go extinct, right? Or they're like, oh yeah, there's a day one patch. We'll fix it with the day one patch. The game you release should be a complete product because you're paying a complete price. I'm not buying it on a purchase plan. You see what I'm saying? Like I bought the book and they're like, okay, yeah, we'll release all the other stuff in a PDF because it's cheap and free for them. They can have an electronic thing. They don't have to worry about that. I'm like, no, just sell a complete product. That's crazy. Not even just the fluff, but I wanted like what is unique about my army. I just read all the rules about all these things. Yeah, same thing. I get the to be fair, I get the no data sheets. I'm even okay with that. I'm okay with the no data sheets. I can meet you halfway on that. But not even a list of what models I have. I see pictures. I'm like, oh, cool. You can literally flip through here, right? And you can see models like, oh, that model looks cool. A Coyote Lightwalker. You know, you don't even know what faction can take that. It's not even listed. There's beautiful models in here, but you have no idea what army they're with. You have no idea where they can and can't be taken. It goes to the point of telling you, you know, what a force organization chart is and how to build an armored walker platoon, and it has to have the command rule, but it has no explanation of what vehicles those are. I feel like I didn't get the back of my book. Like this is bizarre. I love Konflikt 47, but this is what, and I was annoyed when I bought my Imperial Japanese starter army like years ago, and I got the rulebook for Konflikt 47, but I got the rulebook that didn't have the Japanese army, and I was like, well, that's dumb, but hey, at least it's a rulebook, right? not having anything, not having any list of what units go, like, if you didn't know, if you didn't play Conflict 47 ahead of time, you wouldn't know which units go with which army. That is insane. What a way to end. What a way to end the book review in the stream. Holy shnikes. I did not expect that. That's why I'm like, hold on, I'm killing. I took a look at the clock. I was like, let me make sure I at least save like the last hour of the stream, or the last 30 minutes to go over the units. And I kept flipping. The book kept getting thinner and thinner. And then it's just done. Like, I would even be okay if, like, back in the index, right, if they just had, like, just a list, right, of optional, of, like, units you could take for each army. Or just, like, a little bit of lore. Okay, I got it. This is a cool book. I really enjoyed it, but you know what it honestly felt like? And again, I'm a little tired, so maybe I sound a little crankier than usual. I'm still happy. I'm promise I'm still friendly and happy, but you know what this kind of sounded like? 'Cause like a lot of you guys, I waited years for this thing, right? And same thing, I didn't do any early access, so this is my pure take. I flipped through it before the stream. I didn't even get a chance to read it. Otherwise, I would have saw this army thing. You guys are getting my pure, unadulterated, you know, first check on it, right? What this felt like is when you're and I think RK can attest to this. When you're looking up a recipe for a drink or a food, right? When you look up a recipe and you see it's gonna be like 8 or 9 pages. Well, hold on. Let's see what he's saying. I think it's only bizarre if you already expecting it. It really doesn't seem odd to me. You can have other preferences. Yeah, that's fine. That's fair. So what I was comparing it to was Bolt Action 3rd edition, the book they just released, like, what, a year ago? So I figured it would have been in line with that. And I think it would have less units than Bolt Action. So, yeah, very odd. Same company, using similar models, but the main rulebook is designed completely different. That's odd. Anyways, what this book felt like is when you look up a recipe, and it's just page after page after page of their story. Like, oh, I once had this dish while sitting on the patio of a cafe in, I don't know, Trieste, Italy, when the sun was in, you know, the 5 o'clock position. You could see the amber color on and you're just trying to figure out how to actually make, you know, like, risotto balls, and then I talked to my spouse and we enjoyed a glass. It's this, like, whole story thing, like, okay. And then they talk about when making it, it's important to make sure you know, work in the dough very well, and make sure when you use eggs that they're proper quality eggs, and this is the kind of wine you should use. And it goes into how to actually make the dish, which is awesome. And you're like, okay, where's the ingredient list? And then that whole story, you look up the recipe. It has the beautiful story of how they found it. It has a beautiful descriptive way of how to make the dish. And then it just fucks off and leaves off the ingredients list. That's what this felt like. It felt like a recipe book with no ingredient list. It's like, oh, this whole book got me excited, but it's not enough to, I don't know. I think it's odd. But again, I think, Sean, you nailed it. We're just old mid now. That was really weird. I was really looking forward to looking at some Imperial Japanese units. I mean, I can always go on my app, but that's an app I pay for, you know? Like, oh, well, you can look it up online and download a PDF. Why are they... My problem is, so the customer purchased the book, and they purchased the specialty dice, and now you're putting the onus, you're putting the responsibility on the consumer to go look up additional information just to play the base game. I don't know. Very, very odd. So, I know, for those of you who didn't like this, I apologize. I know it's not like my normal streams. First off, there wasn't much painting. There was chatting, but there wasn't a lot of painting. And I was a bit more of a grumpy grognard than usual. I still love Konflikt 47. I'm going to play the living hell out of it. I just thought I'd be honest with you guys, and if you go to any other video, I guarantee you they're gonna glaze the fight in Texas Aggie out of saying. They're gonna say it's the next coming. You know, it's the glorious thing of all glorious things. It's perfect in every way. I'm just being honest. I still like it. I really enjoy it, but this was my initial take of opening the book. You guys were there with me. You know, the lore was a little confusing. We spot one typo. Not a big deal, but, you know, the lore was a little weird. Okay, cool. Not a big deal. The assault platoon, that's fine. That's a preference. Not having the units in it, you're right, it's a choice. Sean's exactly right. It is a preference and it's a choice. I think that's the new way of doing it. I understand it. It's a choice they made. I just think it's an odd choice. I mean, I still bought the book. I still bought the dice. I'm going to still buy the models. They didn't lose me as a customer. I just think it's an odd choice. Yeah, I'm just happy you don't have to pay for the PDFs. Yeah, right. I'm glad it's not on. But I'm gonna be honest. I'm surprised it's not on a subscription. You know, kind of like how the app is. You know, it's like, oh, and for a battle pass, you can have access to a special, unique unit for 1 weekend only that has special rules. It's odd. We'll see how it goes. Like I said, I'm excited to play my first game once I find an army list. And make an Imperial, see with what Rift Tech units I currently have, what all I can make with my Imperial Japanese. But the rules seem great. I will say that the rules are awesome. I know we kind of went back and forth about the dense terrain, and yes, ruins count as dense terrain per the book, and it being infinitely high blocking line of sight. I think it's silly, but I completely understand why it's a rule. I think for tournament play, it is a great idea. And for casual play, it's also a great idea when teaching the game. I think it makes the game much more simplistic. And it's very fast and very easy to play. I understand it. Tabletop Wargamer and me, who likes to play, like, you know, Necromunda, Mordheim style, like multiple levels, it doesn't make much sense elevation-wise, but that's fine. As Sean says, that's my preference. And as I always tell you guys, I'm not right. I'm opinionated, and usually caffeinated, and also, you know, sauced usually. I'm opinionated, but I'm not always right. I wouldn't say never right. Sometimes I am, but I'm not always right. So I think my opinion. I don't think my opinions are right, but they are my opinions for what they're worth. You know, agree, disagree, that's perfectly fine. I'll play any kind of rules with you guys. It doesn't matter to me. But I'm not gonna lie, I was enjoying the book up until the end there. I'm not gonna lie, that took off some stars for me. Even if it was just lore, I'm not gonna lie. If it was just lore, I would have been happy. That would have been cool. Too much OT today, maybe. It's like, maybe we'll be happy if you get some sun, maybe tomorrow. Too much OT. You know, you're probably right. I think I don't even know what hour I'm at for this week. It's my week starts on actually technically this is the end of my week. My weeks start on Saturdays, oddly enough, so this is technically the end of my week. And he's right, it was a lot of overtime, so maybe I'm a little too grumpy. I went into this kind of grumpy with a cup of coffee, but to be fair, I think that means I give it a good critical review. And like I said, all the other channels that are associated and affiliated, you know, and got early access, they're gonna feel a certain way to like kind of give it that positive review and look at it and be like, oh, hey, it was a great thing, it was perfect every way. You guys got mine. I supported the program, or supported the game for years when it was practically dead. Me and several other people, I'm not the only one. You know, I was super excited for this book, and I waited for the actual release. Went out, bought my physical book from a local friendly gaming store and a set of Rift dice. Flipped through it for a little bit, went to work, pulled a double, turned on the stream and looked through it with you guys. So you guys got my 100% initial reaction. So hopefully I didn't lose anybody. Like I said, hopefully I didn't upset anybody. Bonsai, of course. You know, hey, what's going on, Mad Larkin? Hopefully I didn't upset anybody. I know I didn't upset Sean. Me and Sean go back and forth all the time. That's why I like Sean. Sean's a cool guy. We always keep each other in check, and it's legit. But hopefully I didn't upset anybody else. You got to see you got to see a little bit more of unfiltered me, I guess, you know? So, again, I love Conflict 47. I'm excited to play it in the future. I'm still going to play it, but that being said, because I spent my money on it, I feel I'm entitled to my opinion, and it's only my opinion, and I'm free to, you know, change it as time goes on. And my opinion is, the rules are great. The rules are well explained, very well explained. The lore is confusing, and there's typos, which is weird. And not having units for the different the core rulebook is a bizarre choice. It's an absolute bizarre. Like I explained to you, it's like getting that recipe, like looking up a drink or a food recipe, and scrolling through 5 pages of story of how they found the recipe, scrolling through another 5 pages of how to actually make the food, and then you get to the very bottom. There's no fucking ingredient list. And you have to go back and actually read paragraph by paragraph of how to make the food and jot down your own ingredient list. That's exactly what this feels like. Not a deal breaker, just a fucking bizarre design. So I'm like, let's make our own fucking maps. But a good news is this will be the last Conflict 47 stream for at least a month, because next stream will be during October. And remember, in the middle of October, me, Bad Rabbit, RK, and Doc Ginger will be doing our cruise. So we'll be playing some Bolt Action and some Conflict 47, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, we will be doing some serious October. I have so many kit bashes lined up. Guys, all the vehicles I bought that were too small to be trucks are going to get kit bashed into other vehicles. So I'm totally excited about that. We have some awesome kit bashing coming up. It is going to be a good damn time. But I still love Conflict 47. It's not going anywhere. The channel's not going anywhere. I'm still going to cover tons of Conflict 47. What little lore is in here that's legible, I'll cover. Plenty of Conflict 47 videos are going to be coming out, so you guys don't have to worry about that. But yeah, feel free to share this link with anyone who wants to listen to my 4-hour ramblings of looking through the book and see an absolutely unfiltered, unhinged take on Conflict 47. I imagine, not trying to sound like a hipster or like a pick-me girl, like I'm different, you know, but I imagine this take is going to differ highly from a lot of other takes you'll find on YouTube, particularly from people that have sponsorships, agreements, or early access. So yeah, I do fucking love Orcs. Kid bashing Orcs is like the greatest thing. October is going to be absolutely awesome. Yeah, Mad Larkin, you're catching the tail end of it. We talked about it. Like I said, I would have been happy with just a list of models, no points, no weapons, but just a small list of models. Like a list of what units go with what army. Because luckily I play Conflict 47, so I know, and a lot of us play Bolt Action, so we know, but some people don't. So just something at the end, something small would have been great. Lore would have been great, like a little bit of lore. You know, just like a small selection. That would have been great. But nothing at all, especially compared to how they did Bolt Action 3rd Edition. It was a different take. It was a bold choice, and I think some people like it, and that's what matters. Doesn't matter what I like. I bought it anyways, so I'm already lumped in. You know, I'm not going anywhere, so my opinion doesn't really matter that much. I already bought the book, but that was weird. That was an unexpected surprise. All right, let's end the poll. See what we got here. Yeah. So it looks like the Soviets got the. A lot of people think the Soviets got the most glow up. You can see the pictures in the book. You're probably not really sure what army they go with, unless you already play. But that's kind of cool. So, like I said, I wanted to get a disclaimer. You guys got action. So, Saltcast with MG time. I get. Oh no, I think I'm going to avoid collabs from. I mean, I'll always do some break room stuff with my old with the old crew. You know, I love the Minotaur and break room. I'll always do podcasts with them, but I don't think I'll do any collabs just because I can't dedicate the time, man. I still owe some people some voice lines. I owe some other people some other stuff. I work way too much, and my job is too important to me. So I can't. It sounds bad. Like, I can neglect my own channel and my own videos. I apologize for that. I truly do. But again, it's not a paid thing. It's all for free. So that way you're not like, it's not like you're getting cheated on something, you know? I put out stuff when I can, but my job will always come first. As will my family. So I can't collab with anybody, especially anyone who's actually doing it professionally, just because I can't give them that professionalism or that dedication. I will climb with the Tiki, and I'm not being under the table again. And I see what you're saying, Mad Larkin. Like I said, a lot of people like it, and I totally understand that. But what I don't like, what annoys me as a consumer is I bought the product physically. I bought their special dice, and then I'm like, okay, cool. And then I'm like, oh, hey, now go online and download this stuff. I'm like, why do I have to do? It's like buying a video game, right? And putting the disc in and getting excited to play, and then you have a day one patch that's like 3 or 4 hours to download. I understand why it's there. I'm not saying it's not a good idea. I totally understand, and it's the world we live in. I'm just an old grumpy man about it. I'm like, I shouldn't have to do this, you know? Like, it doesn't matter that it's free. It's still asinine in my opinion. Like, what is a couple more pages, right? What is like an additional 20 pages of not like affecting points value or balance, but just lore or just a list. Like, oh, here are all the Konflikt 47 units for Germany. And not even pictures, but just a list of them. Like, this is infantry. This is a walker. Oh, God. Anyways, I'm gonna head out of here. I gotta grab some sleep before I gotta head back to work again. I remember Patch Day Dark Times. Yeah, same thing. You got the book early. You couldn't see the PDF list. It's fine. I get it. It's just me being an old hipster. I'm a tabletop wargaming hipster, I guess. But it's been fun hanging out with you guys. Hopefully, unfiltered me didn't bother anybody. You got to see a little bit more behind the curtain. A little rant and railed. RK, I appreciate your help during the stream, helping me check rules. Ginny, Squidfist, all the usual customers. I appreciate all y'all, like, keeping the chat going, keeping me motivated. You guys are awesome. I appreciate that. I appreciate your chats. Tiki yelled the call. That's exactly what it was. Larkin, that's exactly what it was. Sean, I appreciate you probably one of the most. I appreciate you being that other side. Let me know when, like, hey, I think you're wrong. That's a true buddy. Seriously, that's a true buddy. I appreciate that. That's awesome. Glad to have someone like you watching the stream. But hopefully you guys had fun. Like I said, go back and watch it. Watch other people look at the book and then go back and watch my unhinged 4-hour review. That should be hysterical context. But as always, I hope you guys, if you're going to bed, I hope you get the sleep you deserve. I hope you dream of electric sheep like a good android. For those guys headed to work, I hope you have a great day at work. I hope it doesn't turn into a double. And if it is, I hope you make double time. And as always, stay safe. Stay hydrated. And don't forget to relax today. Because you're on Tiki Time.
Shipwrecked soldiers on wooden sand, type today, rifles in hand. Hula gals with summer smiles, no war drums, just beach for miles. Ghost park by Tiki lights, shadows dance in tropic nights. Sand beneath where boots once stood, paradise ain't so misunderstood. Lost in surfboard, ebb and flow.